subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
Daxan, the sea train is almost finished building. Iceberg seems not interested in discussing peace with Dak. He doesn't have such grand ambitions. Oh, progress is so fast. Yes, thanks to the people you at Bond find, they helped us a lot. Iceberg shows a somewhat relaxed smile. It has been a long time since he felt this light after Tom's last court appearance. It's nothing. We are all partners. Dak waves his hand nonchalantly, also asking, "Has the world government come looking for you yet?" No, probably not until the sea train is completely built. Iceberg shakes his head, then looks troubled. No matter what, Tom San is unwilling to hand over the Pluton blueprints, nor is he willing to just leave Water 7. So we might need to ask Sceptile or Darkrai to save him when the time comes. It's expected, don't worry, Tom San won't die. Dak yawns. Saving Tom is really not a difficult task. If Darkrai makes a move, the world government won't even know who took Tom San away. Tom San is very grateful you're willing to help. He says that once the sea train is built, he will join us in the nursery, although he might still focus on the project to make Water 7 float. Oh, that's great news. Ha! Maybe we can turn Water 7 into one of the most famous Pokémon cities in the world someday. I already have some ideas. Dak hears that Tom wants to join, and his face uncontrollably shows delight. No way around it. Tom's craftsmanship is too strong, undoubtedly the top shipwright of this world in this era. With his help, the nursery's projects can proceed on two fronts. As for the future Pokemon City plan for Water 7, he is benchmarking it against Lumio City in the Kalos region. This city's name might sound unfamiliar, but it birthed a particularly famous character. The later Kalos champion, Grand Festival Master, Mikuri. Lumio City can be said to be the most glamorous city in the Pokemon world, and its water culture is particularly rich, as the Lumiose gym is a water-type gym, and Mikuri is also a water-type champion. Coincidentally, Water 7 has plenty of water. Originally, Flam also planned to come with us, but Tom San stopped him. His dream is to build a dream ship and see it reach the end of the world. Iceberg looks up at the twinkling stars in the sky. Whether it's me or Tom San, we both hope that in the future he can sail on his own ship, watch it with his own eyes, accompany it to fulfill his dream, and not just follow us around. He doesn't seem like the type to have the patience to stay in one place doing nothing, right? Indeed, from when he first came to Scrap Island, he was restless, causing trouble everywhere. Only Tom San was willing to take him in. Dak watches Iceberg suddenly become enthusiastic, telling him about Frankie's childhood. For Dak, this is also a nice experience, allowing him to learn about the past of characters from the original story, and he listens with interest, though he can't help but occasionally glance towards the cabin. That guy really likes eavesdropping. Given Frankie's easily moved nature, he's probably already silently weeping with his mouth wide open. The night passes quickly, and the next day quietly arrives. Bond starts another day of egg delivery, and today Darkrai has much less to worry about. Moreover, the mercenaries that Robin found have also arrived. Robin seems to have specifically recruited people from nearby islands, so they arrive very quickly. There are only 90 of them. It sounds few, but these are no ordinary people, considering Robin paid a hiring price of 2.3 million berries for each person and only hired them for a month. First, there aren't many people doing this line of work on nearby islands, and second, these people are already more than enough. The area of Water 7 is inherently small, just a small island. It just seems bustling and busy, which makes people overlook its size. 30 people per shift, rotating in 3 shifts. Dak even finds 2 very interesting individuals on the hiring list. One is named Galdino, the other is named Miss Valentine. Sound unfamiliar? Well, let's use another name. Mr. 3 and Miss Valentine's Day. The former needs no introduction. He later becomes the famous captain of the Cross Guild on the Grand Line. The latter is a user of the Kilo Kilo fruit, partner of Mr. 5, the woman in the yellow mini dress carrying an umbrella. These two have not yet joined Baroque Works, and Crocodile may not even have recruited Mr. One yet. Galdino was originally a down-and-out office worker who accidentally ate his boss's candle fruit and was hunted down, now forced to scrape by as a new mercenary in the underworld. Miss Valentine's situation is similar. Her dream is to open a chocolate shop, but without funds, she plans to use her fruit powers to make quick money in the underworld, hoping to quickly save enough to start her business. Robin has a keen eye, choosing these two underworld newcomers who have no job experience. She also openly shares her thoughts with Daxan, that is to try to pull these two into their nursery's inspection team, to work under Bond in the future, especially since Dak and the others have said that the nursery is severely understaffed, particularly the inspection department. As for their characters, Robin plans to continue observing them. End of Chapter 89. Chapter 89 actually, Dak doesn't worry much about the character of these people. After all, they're fairly familiar figures. Sometimes Dak really admires the insight of Doflamingo and Crocodile. Impressive indeed. The Pokémon League wouldn't be possible without the contributions from these two. No wonder they are leaders. Their discerning and ruthless vision has chosen each subordinate well. First, let's talk about Galdino, Mr. 3, whose record is compellingly notable. It's hard to say whether this man is lucky or unlucky, always caught up in major events. Yet he always plays a unique role, especially during the Summit War. First, he blocked Magellan's deadly poison wave with his candle wall. Later, at the risk of his own life, he climbed the execution platform and blocked an attack from Sengoku at a critical moment. And finally, he unlocked the sea-stone handcuffs of Ace and Marco with his candle key. Before this, in Little Garden, he nearly annihilated the Straw Hat Pirates, pushing Zoro to the brink of cutting off his own feet. Even without considering Galdino's incredible combat record, just the words Mr. 3 said as he fell from the execution platform were enough to change Dak's opinion of him. If I say I am here to mourn my deceased comrades, would you laugh at me? Although this man is mostly a coward, he has his own survival bottom line. When Bon Clay alone held back all of Impel Down for them, Galdino thought Bon Clay was doomed to die, so he risked his life to step onto the execution platform, seizing the opportunity to fulfill Bon Clay's last wish to help Luffy save Ace. Now let's talk about Miss Valentine Makita. No, not just her, but the other members of Baroque Works too. None of them would abandon a comrade. Of course, this doesn't include Crocodile, who had originally planned to send Bon Clay to eliminate Mr. 3. After Crocodile's defeat and the disbandment of Baroque Works, when Miss Valentine, Mr. 5, and Miss Golden Week were safe in Little Garden, they learned that Mr. 3 was being pursued by the Navy on Holiday Island and decisively left Little Garden to rescue him, only to be captured by Hina. Coincidentally, Bon Clay had just escaped from Hina's custody and immediately returned to rescue them. In the nick of time, Bon Clay fought the Navy to save them, and then they managed to rescue the imprisoned Miss Doublefinger, Christmas, Mr. 4, and that dog. As for the outcome of the battle on Holiday Island, Mr. 2 and Mr. 3 were captured, and the rest of Baroque Works members escaped. Later, the two were imprisoned and impelled down and had no chance to attempt another rescue. As for Crocodile and Mr. 1, they were captured early in Alabasta. Knowing all this, Dak believes that Galdino and Makita are worth developing. Robin, go find these two guys. Ask them if they want to join the Mystery Hatchery House. Don't we need to observe them for a while? Robin was somewhat puzzled. Monet, Bellamy, and their sisters are just ordinary civilians, unlikely to be any trouble. But Galdino and Makita are different. They're from the underworld. Even newcomers there might not be good people. Who else would normally venture into such a place? These two are not like her, being hunted by the world government and the Navy. Once they're in, you can observe them more closely. I'm counting on you to pay extra attention, Robin. Okay. Robin quite likes this feeling of being needed. It makes her feel more clearly that she is a part of the Mystery Hatchery House, a companion to everyone. MHM, have them lead a team each responsible for different shifts. This will help train them. I'm going to the back streets of Water 7. You're going alone? Not exactly. Giratina is here. Dak shook his head, smiling, and pointed at his shadow. A pair of deep blue eyes appeared in the shadow, same as Decry's, but Decry is one-eyed. Ghost-type Pokémon often have the ability to enter shadows or hide themselves in darkness. Many ghost types can make their bodies intangible or transparent, easily passing through walls, and even immune to normal and fighting moves. The best at this is definitely Marshadao, a master of entering shadows. His special ability is to enter any shadow, imitate the target's actions and strength, understand their feelings and emotions, and then surpass the target. As for Decry, Dak doesn't understand why a pure Dark-type Pokémon can enter the Shadow Realm, which is a power Decry showed in the original story. Even without Decry's close protection, Giratina can also enter the shadows to protect Dak. But for Giratina, it seems he doesn't like staying in the shadows. But there's no choice. The process of Bon Clay delivering the eggs cannot go without Darkray's protection, and the other staff members are not comfortable letting Dak go alone. So Giratina has to endure this inconvenience for now. Dak has finished marking the custom eggs. Now he just needs to wait for Bon Clay to deliver the eggs and bring back the money to proceed with the next batch of transactions. Taking advantage of the rare free time now, Dak plans to go to Water 7 and recruit those unemployed into the Mystery Hatchery House. No, perhaps it's more appropriate to say into the future Pokémon League. These people won't become core members of the Mystery Hatchery House. Core members are those who hold significant power, which are the current members of the house. The people about to be recruited will become subordinates to Bellamy, becoming part of the League inspection squad. When Dak left the Mystery Hatchery House, he started wandering the streets of Water 7. Finding the Frankie family was quite simple. For example, the Square Sisters by Frankie's side were very noticeable, as were Zanbai and the other unemployed hanging around the bar entrance. There aren't many places with bars in the outer city. Sure enough, it took Dak less than an hour to find these people. Of course, it might also be related to the current time, at 10 o'clock at night, just when these guys were coming out of the bar. Wow, huh? Today, Zanbai the Great also dominated the drinking table. What are you talking about? Zanbai, you're not that great. Tamagon was impressive. A group of staggering people, still holding bottles, hooked arms and walked forward in the alley, heading towards Dak. Of course, they mean no harm to Dak. They're so drunk, they don't even realize there's someone standing in front of them. But Dak didn't have time to deal with them. His gaze was drawn to the bar door where a pair of sisters were being chased out. Did I remember wrong? It turns out that the Square Sisters didn't have square hairstyles at this time. Dak's gaze was mainly on Kiwi and Mozu, who currently had explosive hairstyles similar to Brooke. Speaking of which, these sisters are not bad in terms of looks and are quite pretty for women in the pirate world, with some peculiarities probably only in their long noses and hairstyles. While Dak was pondering what to say to these people, a man came out of the bar, naturally reaching for the waist of the Square Sisters. "You bastard! What are you doing to our little sisters? Let go!" Before Dak could speak, the front-running Zanbai and others immediately became annoyed. They have good relationships with those they often drink with, because they are all unemployed without families and overlooked by the major shipyards, perhaps out of sympathy. The older brothers usually take good care of the young Square Sisters and do not allow other ruffians to bother them. Get lost. Unfortunately, this time the ruffian targeting the Square Sisters seems not to be an ordinary person, quite strong, and quickly beat Zanbai and the others to the ground. Zanbai and his friends are usually hollowed out by alcohol. Relying on their numbers, they can bully some trashy ruffians. But if they encounter someone who can fight, they turn into softies, not to mention they're still groggy now. These days, the news of the Mystery Hatchery House's opening gradually spread around the neighboring seas. All sorts of oddities and trash came to Water 7 to watch the excitement, like the one currently before them. It's worth noting that the Navy might not normally handle such matters, as since the Great Pirate Era began, the number of pirates has surged, and they barely have enough hands to catch them. "Hey you." Dak shook his head, stepped forward, and even without waiting for the ruffian to speak, raised a hand and grasped the other's jaw, instantly knocking the man out with pain. Now, Dak's strength can't compare with Darkrai, Sceptile, or Giratina. There are hardly a few people in the entire sea who can match them. Aside from those three, Dak's strength is absolutely number one in the Mystery Hatchery House. Handling such ruffian henchmen is an easy task. "Thank you, young man." Zanbai was startled, then leaned on the wall to stand up and thank Dak. Clearly, this man is not ordinary, and besides necessary thanks, a little more courtesy is due. At that moment, the Square sisters also sobered up a bit and came over to bow slightly. Why do you want to be a bunch of ruffians? Dak looked down at the people lying all over the ground. Those who couldn't stand up weren't beaten down. They simply hadn't sobered up from the alcohol. Ahaha, young man, we're just a bunch of worthless people. If it were someone else talking to Zanbai like this, he would definitely be annoyed, but facing Dak, he could only laugh awkwardly. Because Dak had just helped them, and they couldn't beat Dak. As for being annoyed, it's not that he thinks the other party is wrong, but he knows the other party is right, and he's a bit resentful because they're just a bunch of ruffians. A bunch of ruffians who know they are worthless, but just can't bring themselves to admit it. Then go and become a person of value. End of Chapter 90. Chapter 90, it has been 3 days since Bon Clay started distributing Pokemon eggs. All the eggs with white qualifications have been delivered, and the custom eggs with green qualifications are currently being distributed, with completion expected in 2 days. Dak has been busy these days. Previously, Dak promised Sengoku to help set up a special Pokemon-related force of about 30 people to better care for the hundreds of Pokemon babies that will soon be born. These 30 people are temporarily divided into 3 classes: Logistics class, Biology class, and Research class. The Logistics class is responsible for ensuring that all necessary supplies for the Pokemon babies are readily available. Dak teaches them about the common necessary items or consumables for all Pokemon species. As for items specific to each Pokemon species, such as the protective gear for Pawniard, detailed explanations will be given later in Pokemon School. Given the limited time, the 410 eggs at the Navy headquarters are expected to hatch in about 10 days and are currently kept in the underground research facility at Marineford, heavily guarded. During this period, either Sengoku, Zephyr, or Kuzan must stay within a 3-kilometer radius of the facility. Biology class. This class focuses on the nature of Pokemon as creatures, their growth stages, and the relationships between different Pokemon types. It's the class with the heaviest workload and the most complex content to learn. In the future, this biology class could potentially produce several Pokemon professors. But for now, Dak can only teach some basic knowledge within these 10 days. For example, the 18 Pokemon types and their characteristics, such as the Ghost type's ability to appear and disappear and their mischief, and Psychic type's telekinesis and sensitivity to emotions. He also mentions the evolutionary stages of Pokemon to prevent the Navy from being shocked when a Pokemon evolves and changes form. As for more detailed and advanced content, there's too much to cover now. It will have to wait until the Pokémon Academy starts. For instance, the specific conditions some Pokémon need to evolve, different evolutionary paths leading to different forms, Pokémon egg groups and genetics, Pokémon Mega Evolution, Pokémon Ancient Fossil Revival, and the influence of the environment on Pokémon survival. These topics are beyond Dak's current research. He can only recite the system-provided materials, so he can't possibly teach these to the Navy now. Their research progress will depend on the development speed of the Mystery Hatchery House. Research class. This role is similar to being an assistant to a Pokemon professor in the Pokemon world. They help Pokemon professors operate various machines and must have a clear understanding of the average physical data of various Pokemon species. This position doesn't require mastery in one field, but a basic understanding in all areas is necessary, from training to treating Pokemon. They need to keep up with the professor's research and surveys and not be clueless. Dak's teaching duties began the day Bon Clay started delivering eggs, holding classes at the Navy base next to the Mystery Hatchery House branch. During this process, Giratina did not provide close protection. Dak did not want to confine this baby dragon in the shadow space, but Sceptile accompanied Dak. This was useful, as some concepts difficult to explain could be demonstrated through cooperation with Sceptile. Now, as evening approaches, Dak is teaching the last lesson to the biology class. Pokemon are incredibly emotional magical creatures. Their greatest motivation to do anything is undoubtedly the expectations, trust, and sincere emotional feedback from their trainers. In the world where Pokemon originated, the more emotions a trainer invests in their Pokemon, the faster the Pokémon grows stronger. This has been proven over thousands of years. Dak is actually voicing his own thoughts. Whether such conclusions exist in the neighboring Pokémon world is unknown to Dak. Even Professor Oak's human-Pokémon relationship theme study has yet to yield definite results. Dak has repeatedly made similar statements in his teachings to these three Navy classes, aiming to encourage the Navy to invest more genuinely in Pokémon. This can be seen as a form of subtle indoctrination, but Dak believes his words to be factual, and he plans to continue proclaiming this worldwide. Bond evolution, mega evolution, gratitude moves, there are too many things that can substantiate his claims. The world will eventually discover these patterns. Dak is simply informing them in advance. Dak's words naturally shock the Navy personnel. Thousands of years? How many years of history have they studied? No one doubts Dak's words. In the realm of Pokémon, Dak is seen as an authority by these people. After all, Pokémon were brought to this world by Dak, and he holds the strongest Pokémon in his hands. Why wouldn't they believe him? If you want to question his statements, first you need to raise a Pokémon that can defeat Sceptile, Darkrai, and Giratina, and then present your results for scrutiny. Dak also briefly mentioned Pokémon lifespan. Most Pokémon have very long lifespans. For example, Sceptile here is over 200 years old, and he's just entering his prime. If you raise a Pokémon well, you might pass it down as a family protector for many generations. Dak carefully avoided discussing how some attributes, like Dragon or Ghost, can lead to particularly long lives, or how bug types tend to have shorter lifespans. He worries this might lead to discrimination against certain types. This is an inevitable issue, one that even the Pokémon world cannot avoid. Dak can only try to delay its onset. Moreover, as people discover that bug types have shorter lifespans, they will also realize another trait: their fast growth cycles. They can reach their final evolutionary stages quicker than any other type, becoming battle-ready very swiftly. Surely, someone will appreciate the advantages of bug types and raise a generation of bug catchers. Conversely, dragon types are known for being late bloomers. Of course, this world's people are not yet aware of this. They're still amazed by Sceptile's age. Each person's heart is stirred. Having such a Pokémon in one's home, even if one's descendants are not successful, at least one wouldn't have to worry about dying unexpectedly. It's a treasure that can extend a family's longevity. For most of the nobility, royal families, and hereditary organizations in this world, this concept is incredibly enticing. As is well known, the world of One Piece incorporates many ideas from the vibrant world of Naruto, including the distinct notion of bloodlines. Not only in the world of One Piece, but also in the neighboring world of Naruto, this concept is even more evident, undisguised from beginning to end. In One Piece, it's initially subtle, but becomes more apparent later on. Thus, those who value lineage and heritage are particularly numerous in these two worlds, and their biggest fear is that their bloodline might end prematurely, leading to the extinction of their clans. If such a group heard what Dak just proposed, their desire for Pokémon would reach a peak. Let's conclude today's lesson here, and tomorrow I'll explain Pokémon evolution. Dak noted the late hour and Sceptile's sleepiness and decided to end the class. They have all been tired from a day's work. Thank you, teacher. The Navy personnel, respectful like elementary school students, stood and bowed, watching Dak leave the classroom. Dak, with Sceptile by his side, walked out of the classroom towards the plaza outside the building. His actions are also a way of accumulating teaching experience. The Pokémon School will soon become a high-priority project for Dak. As the inaugural headmaster, he will often teach classes personally. Gaining experience now will make it easier when he faces students from across the seas. Hey, Zombie, that's enough for today. You can stop training. Dak shouted across the Navy base's plaza. The dozen or so people undergoing recovery training immediately ceased their exercises and ran towards Dak, crying out, "Boss, I'm dead tired. Boss, my legs are about to break. Boss." These people are the same group Dak recruited from the streets of Water 7 a few days ago, who would later become part of the Frankie family in the original story. Now, they're undergoing recovery training under Dak's supervision, restoring their bodies hollowed out by alcohol and gathering other unemployed people from Water 7 to train together. Dak emphasized recruiting unemployed people who hadn't committed serious crimes. These future members of the Pokémon League's inspection squad, under Bellamy's command, may be weak now, but growing stronger on the Grand Line is not difficult, especially transitioning from ordinary people to somewhat powerful lackeys, which can take less than a few months. Dak doesn't expect them all to strive for Bellamy's level. Reaching the capability described in the original story is sufficient. The elites of the inspection squad will be gradually found and trained across the seas. Furthermore, the future inspection squad will not consist solely of humans. Dak plans to pair them with Pokémon partners, which will significantly enhance their combined combat capabilities. This can be compared to the Beast era in the Pokémon world. At that time, wars between nations were fought by armies composed of humans plus Pokémon, a model that forged many legendary Pokémon stories. The destructive power of such armies is immense. God of the Currents Lugia, the Dragon Trio Reshiram, Zekrom, and Kyurem. These Pokémon's appearances and retreats are all connected to this era's Incarnation Wars. End of Chapter 91. Chapter 91. A week has passed, and Water 7 has transformed significantly. 1/3 of the population of Water 7 now possesses their own Pokémon eggs. Some, more carefree, openly carry their Pokémon eggs out in the sun. However, there are still those who pretend they haven't purchased Pokémon eggs, fearing others might steal their precious eggs. This situation is much improved compared to a week ago. The change in circumstances is largely attributed to the efforts put forth by Dak's side. Firstly, the former unemployed, led by Zanbai, have completely changed their spirits. They now patrol the city in groups of 7 or 8, spread throughout Water 7, looking rejuvenated. The change is no surprise. Moving from being unemployed to working for the Mystery Hatchery House is far more prestigious than being a minor craftsman in a shipyard in Water 7. These individuals have fixed patrol areas with Robin's recruits from the underworld, elites skilled in espionage, assassination, and disguise, including lucky individuals like Galdino and Makita, operating in secret. Dak has equipped Zanbai and the others with iconic uniforms. These uniforms, simple in design, consist of a white suit with black linings and shoes, adorned with a P on the chest. Indeed, it's the Rocket Team uniform, with the R changed to P for Pokémon. Besides the uniforms, various weapons have been distributed. The weapons were chosen by Zanbai and his group themselves. Dak financed their purchases from the weapon stores in Water 7, with most opting for clubs and knives. Dak has informed all of Water 7 that these individuals are from his Mystery Hatchery House, tasked specifically with protecting the customers' Pokémon eggs and dealing with those who would harm them. It is because of these people that the environment in Water 7 has improved, gradually making residents feel safe enough to carry their eggs outside. Additionally, the Navy has increased manpower at their local base. It seems the content Dak taught in his 3 classes has been reported up the chain, leading Sengoku and Tsuru to place even greater importance on the power of Pokémon, prompting them to dispatch more personnel to guard not only the Mystery Hatchery House, but also the eggs in the hands of the customers in Water 7. Sengoku is keen to ensure that such power does not fall into the hands of pirates or criminal forces. He is also eager to see how Water 7, the first city of Pokémons, will develop, whether it will truly become as Dak described, where everyone has the power to fend off dangers, and pirates dare not act recklessly. Sengoku harbors a notion, though it's a fleeting thought that quickly vanishes. This idea is whether the Mystery Hatchery House might one day replace the world government and the Celestial Dragons as the provider of funds to the Navy, which would continue to represent justice in the age of Pokémon, albeit serving the Mystery Hatchery House instead. However it's viewed, the Mystery Hatchery House is arguably superior to the world government and the Celestial Dragons. Sengoku may not fully recognize this thought, but from the moment it occurred, it left a subconscious imprint in his mind that he must not become outright enemies with the Mystery Hatchery House. A lot has happened over the week. The situation in Water 7 has changed not just because the living environment is secured, but also thanks to the efforts of Bon Clay and Darkrai. They managed to deliver all 10,000 Pokemon eggs in just 10 days. A tremendous speed given that Bond Clay handled it solo, even considering Water 7's mod size. Likewise, Dak now has substantial funds to initiate major projects. 3,500 white quality eggs sold for a total of 35,000 Pokecoins. 2,000 green custom eggs sold for a total of 300,000 Pokecoins. 5,000 green quality eggs sold for a total of 500,000 Pokecoins. 500 blue quality eggs sold for a total of 500,000 Pokecoins. That totals 1,335,000 Pokecoins, although 500,000 Pokecoins were spent on purchasing more Pokemon eggs from the Pokemart, and 35,000 Pokecoins were used for daily merchandise and stock at the Mystery Hatchery branches. Therefore, Dak's system balance now stands at 800,000 Pokecoins, exactly the amount he initially anticipated. Stay calm. I need to plan this carefully, or I'll end up short on funds again. Dak forces himself not to look at the balance and begins to sketch and write plans in his bedroom. The Navy's over 400 eggs will hatch in 3 to 4 days, and there will undoubtedly be a need to purchase a large quantity of consumables and equipment. The Whitebeard pirates might also need to procure some items. The Navy might even purchase Pokemon-related research equipment from Dak, like the inspection devices that Sengoku has hinted at multiple times without directly stating it. He sets aside 100,000 Pokecoins for purchasing Pokemon-related props and research machinery, including the technology protection value-added service from the system to monopolize these research machines. Organizations wanting to buy such equipment in the future will have to go through the Mystery Hatchery House, or else spend time compiling data and crafting new machines. In the Pokemon world, despite thousands of years of research, humans still haven't fully cataloged all Pokemon species. Dak also ensures he has funds to purchase Pokemon eggs should new clients or organizations approach. The over 10,000 eggs in Water 7 will likely hatch within a month, and the store's inventory will inevitably be wiped clean. 10,000 Pokemon. I can't even imagine what will happen to Water 7. He reserves another 100,000 Pokecoins. Of course, Dak's balance will certainly be more than just these 100,000 Pokecoins in a month, as the Mystery Hatchery House will continue doing business. 600,000 Pokecoins at my disposal, oh my stars. Dak can barely keep the grin off his face. Why, our Pokémon League, it's time to start building. EV. Dak jumps up from his desk, strides from the restroom into the Pokemon area, and scoops up an EV, smothering it with kisses. Zap! A nearby Dedan, attracted by the commotion, doesn't miss out, delivering a zap that, unfortunately, doesn't quite restore Dak's sanity, instead boosting his adrenaline and excitement. Woo! Within 10 seconds of entering, Giratina, sensing the commotion, swoops down from the sky. 100-meter tall, cream-colored dragon diving towards you. Scary, right? I don't recall Giratina having a divine descent attack. Under normal circumstances, Dak would have run for his life, but today is different. He's too happy. Call it a joyful stupor. Waha! Laughing madly, Dak runs towards Giratina with open arms. Seeing Dak's bizarre behavior, Giratina's eyes widen. It breaks sharply in midair, then turns to flee. Still, it looks back to check for illusions, but instead sees an unprecedented passion in Dak's eyes. Roar! Giratina no longer hesitates. Frightened by Dak's manic state, it twists and flees. And Dak chases after it. They even pass the island's massive lake, where the Magikarp and Phoeba watch dumbfounded as Dak chases Giratina while laughing madly, their stunned expressions hinting at shock. Dak's spontaneous actions somehow stimulate Magikarp and Phoeba's brains, pushing them closer to evolution. Exhausted, Dak stops to catch his breath, realizing he's run to an unknown location. But none of that matters. Dak sits cross-legged on the ground, opening the shopping mode in the Pokemart. First up, special abilities. I must have those. Dak decides to reward his hard-earned money with some purchases, starting with psychic abilities. Psychic abilities are the most widely mastered in the Pokemon world because they can be developed through training. But their prevalence doesn't mean they're weak. On the contrary, psychic abilities are incredibly powerful. They offer offense, defense, telepathy, and the ability to sense the environment and living beings. Truly formidable. Dak plans to eventually acquire all special abilities, but with limited funds, he starts with one. Aura, despite its high status portrayed in a standalone movie as a world-saving force, is relatively underwhelming. Its only advantage might be its balance, sharing some capabilities with other abilities, especially notable in sensing, but that's in a world already familiar with observation hockey. Observation hockey does many things similar to, or even better than Aura, like hearing the voice of all things and advanced uses of psychic abilities, foreseeing the future and sensing emotions. Characters like Katakuri, who can foresee the future, and Odoheim, who possess the highest grade of observation hockey from birth, akin to hearing the voice of all things and rarer than Conqueror's hockey, showcase its power. Why mention this? Because Odoheim's observation hockey could not only perceive thoughts and emotions, but also influence others' minds and values, convincing Fishman Island to sign treaties and coexist peacefully with humans beyond her personal charm. This highlights the frightening aspect of top-tier observation hockey. Compared to this, Aura seems mediocre, possibly only superior to Dragon Power and Override Power. Dragon Power, the signature ability of the Dragon Handler family, is too niche for anyone but Dragon Specialist trainers. Override Power, which only allows for deep communication and calming of Pokémon, has a high potential but is mainly valuable for its limit, reaching as high as Arceus for cost-effectiveness. The most valuable would be Psychic Powers, followed by the healing capabilities of Evergreen Power. Both are essential, although with powerful Pokémon at his side, Dak might not need psychic abilities for combat, but for communication. Conversely, Evergreen Power's healing effects are more immediately beneficial, as the Mystery Hatchery House lacks professional medical personnel. Still, Dak feels he cannot remain weak forever. Everyone dreams of becoming strong, and Dak, as the leader of the Pokémon League, is no exception. Wouldn't it be reasonable to aspire to the level of mythical creatures? In a Chapter 92, Chapter 92 Psychic Ability, Seed 100,000 Pokecoins, the so-called Seed, is akin to a magic base in a fantasy world, allowing someone without the innate ability to have such powers. Without hesitation, Dak immediately made the exchange. Psychic Ability LV.1. This new ability quickly appeared in Dak's ability list. Moreover, Dak could distinctly sense changes within his body, specifically his brain. It was as if a magical power had emerged, enhancing his brain's activity and sharpening his perception of his surroundings. Dak knew this was telekinesis, the most fundamental and essential form of psychic power, a mental force produced by the human brain capable of influencing reality. Although it was a modest change, it was just the beginning. As the psychic abilities level increased, more uses would undoubtedly become apparent. Dak was not ready to stop there. Psychic Ability Upgrade 100,000 Pokecoins per level. Each level up required 100,000 Pokecoins, the cost not increasing with higher levels. Spending a total of 1 million Pokecoins could max out the ability, akin to the cost of a legendary Pokemon. It's like using 1 million Pokecoins to turn myself into a powerful Pokemon, Dak mused. While max-level psychic abilities wouldn't make him as powerful as Giratina, they would at least put him at the pinnacle of pirate strength. Dak then spent another 200,000 Pokecoins to elevate his psychic ability to LV.3. At LV.3, the usefulness of his psychic powers became significantly more evident. Dak could now perform simple psychic-type moves similar to those of psychic Pokemon, such as telekinesis and hypnosis. More importantly, Dak could now communicate mentally without speaking, known as mental telepathy, though he was not yet able to engage in direct communication with Pokémon. Direct communication involved the psychic sensing a Pokémon's emotions and basic thoughts, and the brain interpreting these signals. If there was a strong bond and understanding between the trainer and Pokémon, it would appear as if they were conversing directly. Notably, the enhancement of psychic abilities also significantly strengthened Dak's senses and mental fortitude, thereby enhancing his observation hockey, an unexpected bonus. His previously untrained observation hockey had now unexpectedly advanced from LV.1 to LV.3, surpassing his armament hockey. Dodging bullets was now effortless, although the lasers from pacifistas and celestial dragons were untested. After upgrading his psychic abilities, Dak's system balance was left with 500,000 poke coins, with 200,000 reserved, meaning he had 300,000 poke coins at his disposal. Dak decided to first develop the infrastructure on Pokémon Island. First off, the headquarters for our Pokémon League. Although the league was still small, a headquarters was necessary, even if just for show. Moreover, with the Navy's Pokémon eggs about to hatch soon, Dak planned to sell the previously prepared Pokémon Pokédex. Whether it was for the Navy's care of a newborn Pokémon or Sengoku's curiosity about Pokémon Island, they would likely spend 1 billion berries on the VIP service and possibly visit Pokémon Island spontaneously. The existence of this Pokémon League headquarters was meant to impress visitors. Pokemart Dak browsed through the building options in the Pokemart, eventually settling on a particular structure. Rather than a single building, it was a complex. Pokémon League, Summer Palace, 100,000 Poke Coins. This was the most expensive and largest of all the League headquarters available, with a style suggested by its regional designation, embodying the perfect headquarters Dak envisioned. The architectural style resembled the historical Summer Palace, but on a smaller scale and with different materials. The special terrain was priced at 1 Poke Coin per square meter, matching the cost of the Pokémon League, where 100,000 Poke Coins equaled 100,000 square meters. Such a Pokémon League was arguably the grandest league headquarters in the Pokémon world, far surpassing others, which were typically just single buildings within a city. Regarding materials, while the Summer Palace used materials like Nanmu, pine, white marble, and golden bricks, the League's materials included porcelain in various colors and types, making it more of a massive decorative artifact than a functional complex. This can't just be placed on any plane. It needs prestige, Dak thought. He didn't rush to purchase the complex, but considered the potential landscapes available in the Pokemart. Imagining the League atop a snowy mountain was tempting, but impractical given the harsh climate and accessibility issues, not to mention the cost. Instead, Dak heard the sound of water nearby and turned to see Magikarp and Phoebos splashing in the lake. Perfect, he muttered, eyeing the expansive body of water. The lake was more an inland sea, vastly more significant than any structure he planned. Dak decided to build the League headquarters right on this lake, turning it into a natural moat. Not necessarily functional, but definitely impressive. A Pokémon League situated on a lake would certainly be striking. However, to place the headquarters there, Dak needed to prepare at least 100,000 square meters of foundation, a further 100,000 Poke Coins. Once decided, Dak didn't hesitate, beginning the foundation work 1,000 meters from the shore, directly on the water. The 100,000 square meters of blue and white porcelain perfectly matched the building materials and complemented the Pokémon League even more. When the 100,000 square meters of foundation were laid, Dak immediately positioned the League complex above it. The red porcelain walls surrounding the League neatly fitted the edges of the blue porcelain foundation, effectively serving as perimeter walls. But Dak didn't stop there. He spent another 1,000 Poke Coins to place a 1,000 meter long black and white porcelain bridge between the shore and the League's main gate, its soft light glistening under the sun. Perfect. Dak admired his creation. The colorful, glittering League headquarters might not be practical, but it was undoubtedly one of the world's most beautiful complexes. Once outsiders visited Pokémon Island and saw their Pokémon League, they would be undeniably shocked, likely re-evaluating the League's power. Owning such a headquarters demonstrated the power to shape a world and the wealth to construct such grandeur, sure to attract many to join. But first, they needed to see it. While the interior of the luxurious palace was empty for now, Dak had no plans to furnish it with equipment and facilities just yet. It served its purpose as a showpiece, more effective than any unseeable infrastructure. To expose more people to this luxurious Pokémon League headquarters, Dak had an excellent idea. He planned to host a Pokémon battle exhibition, not only to showcase the Mystery Hatchery House's mystique, but also to demonstrate the heights Pokémon power could reach and to introduce the concept of Pokémon battles to the public. Most crucially, DAC intended to officially announce the birth of their Pokémon League at this exhibition. It would cost a lot of money and require many preparations. But no matter, DAC still had 199,000 Pokecoins to spend freely. Into Chapter 93. Chapter 93 to hold this Pokémon performance match. A battle arena is undoubtedly necessary, a vast and durable one. The match will open with a performance by 2 Pokémon younger than 3 months, aimed at completing a main quest. Since the Pokémon in the store have yet to master visually spectacular moves, their battle might not be very entertaining for the audience, potentially failing to meet the main quest standards. Thus, DAC decides to purchase 2 relatively high-level young Pokémon from the Pokemart to train and prepare for the performance match. However, the main event features 3 powerful Pokémon, Sceptile and Darkrai versus Giratina. Even with their powers suppressed, the battle between them would inevitably be cataclysmic. For the safety of the spectators, DAC must ensure the battle remains confined to the arena. Pokémon Battle Championship Venue. 100,000 Pokecoins in the Pokémon world, the arenas for various regional championships are quite similar. Stadium-like with a circular audience seating surrounding the central battlefield. The venue DAC selects from the Pokemart, costing 100,000 Pokecoins, is an enlarged version of the Sinnoh Championship battlefield, covering a total area of 50,000 square meters. This venue, reminiscent of the Sinnoh region site where DAC first made his appearance, is divided into 4 areas. The central area, usually reserved for elimination rounds and finals after group stages, is the largest, expanded to the size of a World Cup soccer field including spectator and command seats. It encompasses an area of 20,000 square meters. Surrounding this are 3 smaller fields for group stages, each 10,000 square meters, forming a triangle around the central area. Given the intense nature of battles in the One Piece world, where Pokémon might even consume devil fruits, such a vast arena is necessary. After purchasing this grand venue, DAC positions it right in front of the Pokémon League headquarters. This strategic placement ensures that anyone coming to the venue will see the Pokémon League headquarters, achieving the impressive effect DAC envisions. He plans to eventually develop a city around the League headquarters on Pokémon Island, complete with luxurious facilities like a Pokémon Center, friendly shops, and hotels, reserved for League members and their families. Outsiders would only be allowed during events and competitions. Void Barrier. 50,000 Pokecoins. The Void Barrier, a transparent glass-like shield between the battlefield and the spectator stands, absorbs all attacks from either side. Its function, akin to that of the barrier fruit, is surprisingly affordable, likely because its use is restricted to the arena and it serves a single purpose. With the championship venue and the Void Barrier acquired, DAC ensures the safety and smooth conduct of the performance match. With 249,000 Pokecoins remaining in his account and 200,000 set aside for future needs, DAC has 49,000 Pokecoins to spend freely. These will be used to purchase 2 young, but not low-level Pokémon from the Pokemart. These Pokémon will participate in the opening battle of the performance match to help DAC complete the main quest. However, it's crucial that these Pokémon are personally trained by DAC beforehand to meet the quest requirements. While fulfilling the main quest is important, DAC's initial thought was about the right time to pair Monet and Sugar with Pokémon partners. It then occurred to him to leverage these new Pokémon to achieve the quest goals. Currently, everyone at the Mystery Hatchery House, like Bon Clay and Robin, has Pokémon partners, Smoochum and Miltank, respectively. Iceberg is too busy with the sea train to care for a Pokémon, and Bellamy is frequently traveling, making it impractical for him to keep a Pokémon at the moment. DAC plans to eventually provide Bellamy with a high-quality egg to foster deep bonds from the start, allowing for effective training and even mega evolution later on. As for Monet and Sugar, their roles don't demand immediate battle readiness, giving them plenty of time to develop a relationship with their Pokémon. This makes it unnecessary to start from a Pokémon egg. Having made these plans, Dak decides to discuss Pokemon preferences with Monet and Sugar before making any purchases from the Pokemart. After setting everything up at the battle venue and reflecting on the equipment needed for the broadcast of the event, like screens, microphones, and speakers to ensure all commands and judgments reach the audience, he feels his preparations are temporarily complete. Though Dak is eager to continue developing infrastructure, his passion for construction runs deep. Financial constraints force a pause. Several plans for Pokemon Island remain unimplemented, like essential facilities around the championship venue and accommodation for future participants. Sigh. Time to go see what Monet and Sugar think and arrange the next steps. Dak muses, somewhat resigned now that his funds are nearly allocated. Despite calming down from his initial excitement, a smile creeps back onto his face as he gazes at the colorful League headquarters and the grand venue. As Dak steps out of Pokemon Island, he realizes it has already grown dark outside. He had spent almost half a day immersed in his work. Monet, Sugar, come here. Dak calls the sisters over, handing them Pokédex. Take a look and see if there's any Pokemon you like. I'm thinking of getting each of you a Pokemon partner. Me? Monet tilts her head in confusion. Her lack of Pokemon knowledge makes navigating the extensive Pokédex daunting. However, the prospect of having her own Pokemon excites her, and she doesn't reject the offer. Don't worry, chirps Sugar. Let's ask Robin. She knows a lot about Pokemon and can help us choose. Good idea. Monet agrees, pleased with her sister's suggestion. Take your time and try to decide in the next couple of days. Dak advises before heading to the Mystery Hatchery branch in Water 7 to find Bon Clay, who has been managing the store. What's up? Bon Clay knows there's more work to be done as soon as Dak appears. Put up a sign out front. Pokemon performance match coming soon. Tickets 10,000 berries each. Includes a trip to the mysterious Pokemon Island where the Mystery Hatchery's ace Pokemon will demonstrate their power. Make sure to include an image of Sceptile. Dak instructs, planning to promote the event locally in Water 7. The 10,000 berries ticket price is affordable for those who can buy Pokemon eggs, targeting local trainers to be, as well as members of the Navy and the Whitebeard Pirates. These novice trainers, unfamiliar with Pokemon, are crucial for Dak to complete his main quest, as their awe at the Pokemon's powers will fulfill this spectacular requirement of the quest. Conversely, while the first battle might surprise the powerful individuals from the Navy and Whitebeard Pirates, it's unlikely to impress them as spectacular. Only the later battle will shock them. Not just spectacular, but downright terrifying. However, that battle, no matter how fierce, cannot help Dak complete his main quest, as Sceptile and Darkrai are too old. Now, everything is ready. All that's missing is the perfect opportunity. End of Chapter 94. Chapter 94. Dak prepared 10,000 tickets for the exhibition match. By the next day, they were all sold out. The majority were purchased by the aspiring trainers of Water 7 City. Since the cost was almost zero, a net profit of 1 billion belly was made, which is equivalent to 100,000 Pokecoins. It is foreseeable how much money the Mystery Hatchery House will earn from various events in the future. Dak also specially prepared some extra tickets for the Navy, the Whitebeard Pirates, Mihawk, the Don Quixote family, and Morgans. The first three are old customers of the Mystery Hatchery House and have contributed a lot to its development. They're likely to become the first batch of VIP customers and deserve some benefits. As for the Don Quixote family and Morgans, they were purely invited to give Dak free publicity, letting the underworld see the strength of the Mystery Hatchery House, recognize the power of Pokemon, and witness the birth of the Pokémon League. They will naturally promote this to the world without Dak having to pay Morgans for the publicity. The Navy was specifically prepared with about 450 tickets, mainly to allow the upcoming trainers in the Navy to bring their Pokemon to watch and learn, as well as to expose the 3 Pokemon departments within the Navy as much as possible to the Pokemon battle format. As for the Whitebeard Pirates, about 20 tickets were prepared, just enough for Newgate to bring his sons to enjoy the spectacle. The other 3 parties got 1 ticket each. Dak couldn't possibly give too many tickets to these people. He worried that too many strong participants might make the first match less exciting, potentially causing the main mission to fail. Another thing, as Dak expected, The Navy showed up at the mystery Hatchery House to purchase various daily necessities in the days leading up to the hatching of the Pokémon eggs. They did not go to the Water 7 City branch, but came directly to the main mystery Hatchery House. The visitor was Kazan. The spending amount wasn't much, only 6 million belly. Among this, 5 million belly were spent on various supplies in small quantities, and 1 million was spent on a white Pokédex. Dak had expected the Navy to spend at least 10 million on various consumables, like Moo Moo milk, which would provide more nutrition and stronger growth to Pokémon in their infancy. But the Navy's actions surprised Dak. After some consideration, Dak also figured out what was happening. Unlike Whitebeard's pirates and lone wolves like Mihawk, the Navy has its professional research teams and chefs. They can easily develop alternatives or similar products based on the merchandise sold at the Mystery Hatchery House, saving a significant amount of money. Although it's still a long time before the 10 Pokémon eggs with Whitebeard's pirates will hatch, they also began purchasing various supplies for Pokémon. It seems that the Little Fortune egg has almost been consumed. The income was not much, about 100 million belly. But when the Whitebeard pirates learned about the Pokédex, they also purchased a white Pokédex without hesitation, becoming the second VIP of the Mystery Hatchery House. Mihawk also made a visit. Besides spending some money on snacks for Psyduck, he also planned to buy another Pokémon egg. Mihawk did not make any specific requests, just asked for a Pokémon egg. This left Dak a bit baffled, and he only had one way out. Random Pokémon egg, 500 Pokecoins. Obtained Pokémon egg, white. 500 Pokecoins were exchanged for an egg worth 5 Pokecoins. With a grimace, Dak handed the pink Pokémon egg to Mihawk and charged him 100,000 belly for it. Together with the amount Mihawk spent on various consumables earlier, it just offset the cost of the loss from the Pokémon egg. This transaction neither made a profit nor a loss. Mihawk didn't say much, cradling the egg and leading Psyduck away, not even considering buying a Pokédex to become a VIP of their hatchery house. Of course, it could also be that he was tight on funds recently and didn't want to say so. When Mihawk wants to spend money, he usually forages locally or prepares in advance. It depends on which unlucky pirate with a bounty runs into him. The Pokédex was a sudden product suggestion from Dak, so it's normal that Mihawk wasn't prepared in advance. After settling these matters, Dak called all the members of their Pokémon League to the front of the Water 7 City branch, excluding mercenaries like Gardino and Makita, who continued to ensure the safety of Water 7 City. Besides them, whether it was Bellamy undergoing training, Iceboy working on the sea train, or those prosecutors in training, Dak summoned them all to this place. He was going to take these people to Pokémon Island next, to see the base of their Pokémon League and the venue for the exhibition match. On the day the exhibition match opened, Dak would gather these people again. First, to participate in the first event hosted by their hatchery house, and second, to help maintain order at the event. "Boss, is there any new work?" asked Gardino. When Robin invited him, Gardino didn't hesitate to join their Pokémon League. In Gardino's view, working for the Mystery Hatchery House meant high pay, good treatment, high safety, no overtime, and more prestige. It was the dream job, far better than his previous heartless boss and company, so of course he didn't hesitate. However, such a hasty join meant loyalty was low. It wasn't impossible for Gardino to abandon the hatchery house and flee if he faced danger in the future, and he still needed to gradually harmonize, touch, capture his loyalty, and integrate him into the league. On the other hand, Makita didn't accept Robin's invitation because her dream was to open a chocolate shop, and she was just saving up money now. If she joined the hatchery house, would she still be able to open her own shop? You all know that in a few days our hatchery house will hold an event called Pokémon Exhibition Match on Pokémon Island. Dak nodded, feeling that Gardino had a good work attitude, worthy of his past as an office worker. "Today I'm taking you there in advance to familiarize yourselves with the route. When the time comes, whether it's leading guests to the event venue or maintaining public order, you'll be prepared." "Yes, sir." After understanding the task at hand, Gardino bowed slightly, then stepped back and rejoined the team. In his mind, this was akin to a vacation-like holiday. Since it's going to another island, it'll take 2 to 3 days round trip. Looks like I've got a 2 to 3 day holiday. Gardino maintained a serious expression on the surface, but inside, he was already overjoyed. People like Zambai thought they were going to another island. Only core members like Iceberg and Robin, who had already visited Pokémon Island, looked puzzled. In their memory, wasn't Pokémon Island just a big plane with nothing on it? What was there worth going to see specially? They didn't know what Dak had done on Pokémon Island 2 days ago. If it weren't for Dak mentioning early on when they joined that the Hatchery House might connect to Otherworld in the future, it would have been a preemptive vaccination. Otherwise, the sudden appearance of Pokémon Island would have been enough to shatter their worldview. Pokémon Island could indeed be called another world, albeit belonging to the world of Giratina. So, follow me from now on. Dak led the group inside the branch of the Hatchery House. As soon as they stepped into the showroom, they were greeted by a sea of green. The floor was covered with artificial grass, with several display shelves holding the branch's merchandise, each clearly priced. Passing through the showroom, they arrived at the resting area in the middle of the Hatchery House. This was where Sceptile usually rested. The ground was covered with real grass and soil, and many different plants were grown inside, especially small trees and bamboo, which Sceptile seemed to particularly like. Moving further inside, they reached the warehouse. There was nothing special here, and at the very back of the warehouse was a huge mirror on the wall. The mirror didn't reflect anyone's appearance. If you didn't come close and notice this, you would really mistake it for an ordinary mirror. This is the entrance to Pokémon Island. The exhibition match is tentatively scheduled for 7 days from now. In 7 days, this mirror will be moved to the entrance of the branch for our guests to enter. Then remember to deploy personnel to maintain order nearby, preventing anyone from sneaking in or cutting in line. Dak pointed at the mirror in front of him, not caring about the group's astonished expressions, and took the lead stepping through. Subsequently, the core personnel of the Hatchery House calmly followed. The remaining people like Gardino stood dumbfounded, their jaws gradually dropping, and when they looked into each other's eyes, they saw a look of shock. Don't be too surprised. The power of Pokémon is much stronger than you imagine. This so-called Pokémon Island is actually a world created by one of our mystery Hatchery House's Pokémon. Bon Clay, who was covering the rear, couldn't help but grin as he spoke this astonishing truth. At that time, Dak hadn't specifically explained the origin of Pokémon Island, just mentioning that that world belonged to Giratina, so Bon Clay had imagined it as a world created by Giratina. At this moment, he finally felt the thrill Dak often experienced when showing off. It was simply too cool. He definitely needed to ask Dak to let him take on roles like narration, hosting, and introducing in the future. End of Chapter 95. Chapter 95, Nanny. Pokemon can do this. Gardino couldn't maintain his professional demeanor, utterly astonished by what Bon Clay had told him. Creating an entire world like this. Makita also widened her eyes, the usually cheerful girl unable to muster a smile, her face full of surprise. Such a thing was just too extraordinary, truly hard to believe. Why not go inside and see for yourself? Don't just stand there. Dak is probably already waiting for us. Bon Clay, seeing everyone's shocked expressions, pushed them one by one into the mirror. Stepping through the mirror, when everyone found themselves suddenly appearing in a vast grassland, they were stunned. Feeling the breeze on their faces and the scent of grass in their nostrils, they finally realized that it was all real. The so-called Pokémon Island wasn't an island at all. It was a world. Oh, the boss is really amazing. Yahoo! I knew our mystery hatchery house was incredible. Exactly. Such a kind boss couldn't be just anybody. While Gardino and Makita were still dazed, Zambai and several other inspectors had already joyfully joined hands and started dancing in circles on the grass. They weren't the type to think too deeply about what the appearance of this place meant, nor did they notice the changes happening to their own bodies. They only knew that the mystery hatchery house was powerful, so joining it made them powerful as well. My God! What kind of organization did I join? Gardino was already sweating from his forehead. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he would never believe that such things existed in the world. Gardino, you felt it too, right? Makita, holding her yellow, frilly umbrella, I felt something was off ever since they arrived in this world. I can't use my powers anymore. Not only that, her physical strength seemed much weaker. But this change wasn't obvious, since her physical condition wasn't strong to begin with. So she couldn't be sure if it was the sudden change in scenery causing her discomfort. I can't use the powers of the candle fruit anymore, either. Gardino snapped back to reality. If it weren't for Makita's reminder, he wouldn't have noticed. What's going on? There's no need to try. Giratina's world is best suited for Pokémon. Humans are equal here, and everyone's physical condition isn't much different from an ordinary person. The only difference is an individual combat experience. Only Pokémon can fully utilize their strengths here. Bon Clay clenched his fist. Here, the difference in strength among humans was extremely limited. The talents of geniuses and the mediocre were almost indistinguishable, and so-called bloodlines meant nothing here. Everyone, including the staff of the Mystery Hatchery House, stood on the same level. Everyone, Zambai blinked, clenching his fist. Does that mean even the Pirate King Roger would have to follow our Hatchery House's rules if he came here? Hearing Zambai's words, everyone couldn't help but look towards Bon Clay. Because if that was the case, then their Mystery Hatchery House would naturally be in an invincible position in this world. Exactly everyone, including myself. Bon Clay nodded and couldn't help but grin. Here, it's not like outside. No matter how strong you are, you can't take on 100 alone. Even if the Pirate King himself came, all of you together could beat him up. Gardino, hearing this, couldn't stay calm anymore. He had made up his mind that he must stay in the Mystery Hatchery House forever. This time, it wasn't just about a simple job anymore. He was truly joining this organization. Even if Dak didn't pay him his salary, he would still serve the Hatchery House. Can we live here in the future, too? Makita put away her umbrella, holding it in her hands as she looked expectantly at Bon Clay. If she could open a chocolate shop in such a place, she would never have to worry about pirates causing trouble or robbing her again. I'm not sure about that. We'll have to see what Dak's plans are. Speaking of which, they're waiting for us over there. Let's go. Bon Clay was also unsure if what Makita asked was possible. Whether outsiders could stay permanently in this world depended on Giratina's will, and Giratina only listened to Dak. Bon Clay led the group in a certain direction. Dak was already waiting with the core personnel of the Hatchery House. The entrance opened by the mirror inside the branch was not too far from their league's base location, but it was still about 1,000 meters away. This 1,000 meters was intentionally left by Dak. It was to allow the incoming customers to feel more clearly the vastness of this world. Just like at this moment. How big is this world exactly? Look at that tree over there. It must be at least a few thousand meters away from here. What few thousand meters, given the height of that tree? It must be tens of thousands of meters away. Zambai and others expressed countless emotions and discussions during this not-so-long distance. Soon, they arrived where Dak and the others were. Let's go. Show everyone our territory. Dak grinned and pointed ahead. Following the direction Dak was pointing, they could see some buildings, though the distance was too great to clearly perceive the size of the buildings. Roar! At that moment, a tremendously piercing roar came from the sky. Everyone instinctively looked up, just in time to see Origin for me, Giratina, flying across the sky. What is that? My God, it's terrifying. Just looking at it makes it hard to breathe. Wait, I remember Bonson mentioned earlier that this world has an owner, apparently named Giratina. Is that the Pokémon? Truly a Pokémon that created a world. Aside from the core members of the Hatchery House who already knew about Giratina, others who saw Giratina for the first time were stunned on the spot, some even struggling to breathe properly. There was no helping it. Not to mention that Giratina is a deity of the First Order, known as the Lord of the Underworld and Ghost Dragon, the master of this world. Just the fact that Giratina currently maintained a body length of nearly 200 meters was enough to awe those who hadn't seen much of the world. If Giratina transformed into another form, the pressure felt by everyone might be even stronger. Because Origin for me, Giratina's ability is levitate, while the other form's ability is pressure, making Giratina seem like it's constantly emitting a weak king's haki just by standing there. Giratina. Dak waved his hand, greeting Giratina. Seeing so many people around Dak, Giratina gave a cool nod, then flew back into the sky and disappeared. If it weren't for the crowd here, Giratina might have let Dak experience its king's presence more closely. Dak had anticipated this scene, so he calmly continued to lead everyone forward. As the distance gradually closed, the people behind Dak could no longer keep their composure. Not just Gardino and his group, even Bon Clay, Robin, and others began to look surprised. The battle tournament venue and the Pokémon League now came into everyone's sight. Bon Clay and others simply couldn't understand how Dak managed to suddenly add these buildings here. They were certain that there was nothing here before. These buildings existed in a world where Pokémon were born. Now, Giratina has used its power to materialize them here. In the future, Giratina will use that power to materialize even more buildings. Dak attributed this ability to Giratina. He led everyone first towards the Grand League base, which looked like a huge piece of porcelain. 7 days from now, during the exhibition match, I will announce the establishment of our Pokémon League. And this place will be the base of our Pokémon League. Only members of the league can step inside. Dak stepped onto the black and white porcelain kilometer-long bridge first, and everyone followed closely. Looking at the exquisitely reflective bridge under their feet and the luxurious buildings in front of them, they had lost count of how many times they had swallowed. How much did this cost? Gardino's eyes under his glasses were shining. He extended his trembling hand and gently touched the porcelain railing, not daring to estimate the price of the bridge. Just this bridge alone would probably take a lifetime of his previous job to build. But now, he was walking on this bridge, and in the future, he could walk it whenever he wanted. Thinking this, Gardino's pace changed from timid to reckless, enough to stun even Doflamingo if he saw it. Boss, what will this place become in the future? Makita, looking around at everything, finally couldn't hold back her curiosity. Well asked, I plan to create a Pokémon city on this land in front of our base. In the future, only members of our Pokémon League and their relatives can live in this city. Others can only live in other cities or the outside world. To come here, they'll have to wait for special periods. Dak took the opportunity of Makita's question to reveal a small part of his future plans. Painting a picture for his employees was also a basic skill that a boss must master. Really? Then, can I open a chocolate shop here? End of chapter 96. Chapter 96. Makita was extremely excited. Originally, her dream was just to find a safer place in the 4 seas to open a chocolate shop, but now it had changed. She wanted to open the chocolate shop in this city. Safety would no longer be a concern, and in this world, everyone would have to respect the Pokémon League. At this moment, Makita already considered herself a 10-year veteran of the league. Not even Dak could drive her away. If you're willing to work for the Pokémon League in the future, then of course it's no problem. The city I want to build will also need various types of shops to make it lively during competitions and various events. Even if you don't do it, I'll find others who are interested. Dak certainly didn't mind his employees opening shops here. For a city to develop well and be lively, sheer strength isn't enough. Various businesses like food, entertainment, and tourism need to be established. Although Dak didn't plan to let outsiders come into this city freely, it would still be open for at least 3 to 4 months a year because there are just too many Pokémon competitions involved. Whether it's the basic battle competitions, glamorous contests, breeding competitions, fishing contests, science summits, or marathons, these events would certainly fill up 3 to 4 months when combined. If there were no specialty shops in the city by then, it would only make the visitors feel bored. Great. Thank you, boss. Makita jumped for joy on the spot, her face breaking into an excited smile, her cheeks flushing with color. This was the first time she felt so close to her dream. It's nothing. Dak shook his head. Providing benefits for his employees was normal. He couldn't let down the people who worked hard. He continued, leading everyone into the league base, touring the internal structure of the league. Everyone was overwhelmed by the opulence of the league, and just thinking about how they would frequently enter these buildings under the watchful eyes of outsiders filled them with pride. Their grins were harder to suppress than an AK. After the tour of the league base, Dak took everyone to the competition venue. The 3 surrounding subvenues won't be used for now and will have other uses in the future. The exhibition match in 7 days will take place in this central venue. Your job then will be to maintain order in this area and prevent disputes among the guests. Dak led everyone to the expansive central venue. The central venue alone had seating for 50,000 plus many standing areas. The 10,000 spectators of the exhibition match sounded numerous, but spread out across the stands of the venue. They actually appeared quite sparse. Don't worry, leader. We guarantee to complete the task. Exactly. Even if the Navy Admiral comes here, he must behave. Otherwise, I'll hammer him. No one could defeat us here. Everyone was very enthusiastic about the tasks Dak arranged, cherishing their jobs at the Hatchery House. Not only because they saw the endless potential and future of the Hatchery House, but for people like Zambai, Dak was the sunlight that broke through their aimless lives. Even if they couldn't see Pokémon Island now, they would still strive to complete their tasks. Now, with the void suppression rules of Pokémon Island, they were even more confident in completing their tasks. As for the change in title to leader, it was an automatic shift by everyone after learning that their organization was called the Pokémon League. So, everyone put in more effort for the exhibition match a week from now. Dak nodded, seeing that everyone had finished their tour, and led them off Pokémon Island. These people still had their own jobs to finish in Water 7 City. Dak didn't believe that the rats hiding in the shadows would stay quiet, so he had to keep someone watching at all times. After the exhibition match is over, I'll pair each of you with a Pokémon partner. Dak was sending everyone off Pokémon Island and spoke of something everyone had long anticipated just before they left. Seeing the people of Water 7 City with their own Pokémon. How could those working for the Mystery Hatchery House not envy them? Yet they themselves had no money, so all they could do was watch enviously. Hearing what Dak said now, everyone was overjoyed, and some of the less subtle even shed tears of emotion. Dak didn't think too much of it. After all, everyone's current strength was really average. They were already at a disadvantage in Water 7 City, not to mention the idea of expanding the branches into the new world. Pairing everyone with a Pokémon was also to allow them to grow and strengthen together, better completing their duties as inspectors and punishing those who violated the Hatchery House's rules. Monet, Sugar, stay back for a moment. Dak watched everyone leave, calling the Monet sisters aside. Do you have a Pokémon you like? Dak guessed that by this time, Monet and Sugar had probably already consulted with Robin and had made their choices. Yeah, both Monet and Sugar nodded after exchanging a glance, their eyes nearly sparkling with anticipation. They had spent the past 2 days almost entirely considering this matter, frequently pulling Robin aside to learn about Pokémon. So, which Pokémon have you chosen? Dak was curious about what kind of Pokémon the sisters would select. He hoped it would be one with visually striking abilities, as this would enhance the effect during the exhibition match. This one, first was Monet. She took out the Pokédex Dak had given her and flipped to a certain page. Dak looked closely and couldn't help but smile. This Pokémon's hair, it's quite similar to yours, Monet. Gardevoir, a psychic and fairy-type Pokémon, known as the Queen of Psychic Powers. Although its base stats aren't high, its combat power, as demonstrated in the original series, could match many near-legendary Pokémon. The champion of the Kalos region, Diantha's ace Pokémon, was a Gardevoir. Also, Gardevoir had terrifying popularity, especially in the place where Dak came from in his previous life, where countless people considered Gardevoir as their wife, looking to create some taboo event between humans and Pokémon. Moreover, some didn't even care about Gardevoir's gender, knowing that male Gardevoirs also exist. Ugh, Gardevoir would definitely not associate with these people. From its initial stage as a Ralts, Gardevoir could vaguely sense the goodness or evil in a person's heart. If someone harbored bad thoughts in front of Gardevoir, they would be disliked by it. Yeah, it looks like our leader too. Monet nodded vigorously. She had fallen for this Pokémon the moment she saw its hair color. She thought Gardevoir was beautiful and also had a very gentle aura. Monet felt that being with such a Pokémon would be very comfortable. And you, Sugar? Dak then turned to Sugar. Monet's choice was very good. After all, Dak himself had once called Gardevoir his wife, and, of course, he liked this Pokémon. This one. Sugar also flipped through the Pokédex to her page. Dak looked and slightly widened his eyes. Sugar's choice was indeed a surprising Pokémon because this Pokémon didn't have much presence in the original story. However, having little presence doesn't mean it wasn't popular. This Pokémon also had many fans, just not as many as Gardevoir. Mismagius, a ghost-type Pokémon. Some people also referred to it as the Queen of Ghosts, but this title wasn't as resounding as Gardevoir's, especially since Mismagius didn't appear in any champion teams in the original. Moreover, Mismagius was rare because evolving Misdreavus into Mismagius required a Dusk Stone, a very rare evolution stone. If a champion's main Pokémon were a Mismagius, then the title of Queen of Ghosts might be justified. In terms of base stats, Mismagius was also lower than Gardevoir, and it didn't have a known Mega Evolution yet. Very thoughtful. Dak didn't know much about Mismagius. He didn't say much more, not wanting to interfere with Monet and Sugar's own choices. Mystery Shop opening the shop. Dak directly searched for the names of these two Pokémon. A large number of Gardevoir and Mismagius appeared in the listing, with Mismagius numbers possibly not even 1/10 of Gardevoir's. Dak furrowed his brow as he carefully examined each one. Potential, level, and age were the three key factors affecting the prices of these Pokémon, followed by move pool, nature, type, ability, and other aspects. There were Pokémon with low potential but high levels. These Pokémon's prices were generally very cheap. For instance, Dak saw a green potential Gardevoir in the pirate world at level 80, but it was also quite old, having lived for thousands of years. But because it was very old and near the end of its life, with not much time left to live, the value of this Gardevoir was greatly reduced in the system's evaluation, such that 80 to 90,000 Pokecoins were enough to buy this powerful Gardevoir. However, Dak would definitely not consider such a Pokemon with a short remaining lifespan. Whether for trainers or for Pokemon, becoming closely bonded partners at this time would surely be a huge torment. So even if those max-level Pokemon with green or white potential were available for just 100,000 belly, Dak wouldn't consider them. Regarding levels, Dak could basically confirm that these Gardevoir and Mismagius wouldn't be lower than LV.30 in their native worlds. Level 30 is the evolutionary threshold from Kirlia to Gardevoir. Some Kirlia might evolve prematurely due to various accidents, which isn't a good thing as it could lead to damage potential. In wild Misdreavus, obtaining a Dusk Stone generally wouldn't be at a weak stage, which is why the levels of Mismagius are generally quite high. After considering for a long time, Dak finally selected two Pokemon as targets. Gardevoir, Purple, LV.30, 65,000 Pokecoins. Mismagius, Purple, LV.33, 65,000 Pokecoins, and a Chapter 97. Chapter 97 purchasing both Gardevoir and Mismagius. Dak spent a total of 130,000 Pokecoins. This was after Dak had calculated the balance, which now stood exactly at 200,000 Pokecoins within the system. Normally, two Pokemon of level 30 plus with purple potential shouldn't be this expensive, especially considering that a purple egg costs only 5,000 Pokecoins. Although the prices for Gardevoir and Mismagius could rise due to Mega Evolution and the Dusk Stone respectively, logically, they shouldn't increase by much. The biggest reason for the high price of these two Pokemon was their lifespan. One of Dak's main mission requirements included age below 3 months. An age under 3 months, with purple potential reaching level 30 and evolving to the final stage, you can imagine how rare such Gardevoir and Mismagius must be. Perhaps their potential has reached the peak of purple, not far from orange. When the two Pokemon appeared before Dak, they reacted differently. Gardevoir greeted Dak with a gentle smile and a wave of its hand. Mismagius flew straight over and circled around Dak, seemingly sizing him up. Their different attitudes during this first meeting were enough to hint at the slight variations in the two Pokemon's personalities. However, they both seemed to have a misunderstanding. Because Dak had exchanged them from the mystery shop, Gardevoir and Mismagius subconsciously thought he would become their trainer. This inherent basic favorability made them not fully understand Dak, yet they did not show any rejection. "Nice to meet you," Gardevoir, Mismagius. Dak nodded and greeted the two Pokémon, then pushed Monet and Sugar towards them. If possible, I hope you could try to get along and see if you can accept each other as partners. If you're not satisfied with Monet and Sugar, I won't force you to become their Pokémon. You can live freely on Pokémon Island, and I will also find some of your kind in the future. If Dak were to become the trainer for Gardevoir and Mismagius, these two Pokémon would not refuse. But for Monet and Sugar, who lacked any initial favorability, they needed to interact to see. After all, the relationship between Pokémon and trainers is mutual. It's not just about Dak wanting them to be Monet and Sugar's Pokémon. Gardevoir. Gardevoir's character seemed to be compliant and gentle, nodding gently at Monet. It could sense the emotions in a person's heart, and for now, Monet gave it a good feeling. Please take care of me in the future, Gardevoir-san. Monet, sensing Gardevoir's agreeable attitude, relaxed somewhat and even affectionately tried to take Gardevoir's hand, which the latter did not resist. Dak nodded at this scene. Monet and Gardevoir's compatibility was good. They would likely become trusting partners quickly. Mismagius, however, was not as easy to get along with as Gardevoir. Even Dak needed a moment to size her up, let alone the young girl Sugar. Mismagius regarded Sugar with a scrutinizing gaze. She had a strong aura, possessing a natural queenly demeanor. The different demeanors of Gardevoir and Mismagius might stem from their environments of growth. Gardevoir, as a Ralts, likely grew up surrounded by love, treated gently, and thus treated others gently in return. Mismagius, however, probably had a tough existence as misdreavus, struggling to strengthen both body and mind to survive, which shaped her forceful personality. Indeed, being able to find a dusk stone in the wild and evolve is certainly not something just any misdreavus could achieve. Hello, Mismagius-san. My name is Sugar. Sugar greeted Mismagius energetically, unafraid of the scrutinizing gaze. Mismagius nodded. She seemed neither pleased nor displeased with Sugar's demeanor, adopting an indifferent attitude as if it didn't matter either way. Then, come with me, let's check your health. After the greetings, Dak led Gardevoir and Mismagius to the manufacturing room to check their physical data. Monet was already proficient in using the inspection device, so Dak didn't need to operate it himself. This was perfect as it allowed Monet and Sugar to get to know their Pokémon partners better, while Dak also checked what skills these two Pokémon could learn in the coming days. If they inherently had skills with strong visual effects, then the main mission would be well on its way to success. Gardevoir type, psychic, fairy ability, trace potential, purple height, 1.6 meters weight, 48.4 kilograms age, 81 days level, LV.30 skills, magical shine, magical flame, shadow split, instant movement. Stable. This was Dak's first thought upon seeing Gardevoir's skill set. Gardevoir's attributes were all standard. Its height and weight were average, but the visual effects of these skills were strong, making it a natural contestant for coordination competitions. Trace. Pokémon each have their own abilities. In Pokémon battles, some abilities might not seem impressive, but they could have special effects against certain opponents. For instance, Gardevoir's Trace. The so-called Trace allows it to take on the abilities of its target opponent, which isn't particularly standout among many Pokémon battle abilities. However, what if this Gardevoir encountered users of the Devil Fruit powers? If it met Luffy, would its body's property become rubber? If it met Borsalino, would its body's property become light? It's uncertain with the Glint fruit, but if it met Luffy, Gardevoir's property could likely become rubber. A Pokémon with the Trace ability facing powerhouses like Garp and Mihawk might struggle, but it's a different story against Devil Fruit users. The more distinctive and strong the enemy's characteristics, the stronger Gardevoir's ability could potentially become. As for level, Gardevoir's combat ability in its native world was also LV.30, with no change. Mismagius should be different. Mismagius type, ghost ability, levitate potential, purple height, 0.8 meters weight. For kilograms age, 82 days level, LV.30 skills, magical leaf, charging beam, freezing wind, Mental shock, shadow ball indeed. Dak pinched his chin. As he had expected, Mismagius's true level was only LV.30, 3 levels lower than in the pirate world, the same as Gardevoir. Probably because her ability to fly freely gave her a higher rating in the pirate world. However, Mismagius's skill pool was significantly different from Gardevoir's. Though also visually striking, Mismagius's skill pool was broad, including skills of multiple types, whereas Gardevoir's skill attributes were somewhat more limited. A broad skill pool could greatly increase the survival chances of Pokémon who operate solo in the wild. Mismagius was likely a lone wolf, secretly observing other Pokémon groups to practice skills to enhance her survivability. While Gardevoir was likely a community Pokémon, well protected from a young age, rarely interacting with other types of Pokémon, only learning skills from elders of the same type. All in all, at least based on the state of the two Pokémon, the performance in the show a week later should be effective. Dak nodded. Honestly, given the current skill sets of the two Pokémon, they were completely sufficient for the exhibition match, basically not requiring any special training. With this in mind, Dak decided to focus more on their diet, helping Gardevoir and Mismagius get more nutrients to develop better. Wild Pokémon are mostly not as physically robust as trainers' Pokémon. Because various breeders' and Pokémon professors' research foods are widely circulated in the Pokémon world, virtually any trainer who isn't extremely poor tries to improve their Pokémon's diet. Like Ash's travels, there's always a breeder companion who helps Ash's Pokémon grow stronger. In the original series, it's common to see gym trainers or champions complimenting Ash's Pokémon, praising their well-nurtured growth, beautiful fur, etc. These are largely the achievements of Brock, Sillin, and other breeders, whose food allows the Pokémon to replenish what they consume in daily training and nourish their bodies with excess nutrients. On the other hand, wild Pokémon, the lucky or powerful ones, might find some natural treasures and become a local tyrant, but the weaker ones often eat inconsistently, starving every other day. This shows how important, or more precisely, how critical nutrition is for a Pokémon, especially for Pokémon like Gardevoir and Mismagius who have always survived in the wild. The differences are quite apparent. Community-based Gardevoir's physical development is average, while lone wolf Mismagius directly has below average height and weight, clearly a consequence of insufficient nutrition. With the breeding plans for the next few days set, Dak didn't hesitate any longer and immediately began making Pokeblocks suitable for Psychic-type and Ghost-type Pokémon. Time quickly passed, and 2 days flew by. As Dak continually improved and innovated his Pokeblocks, his breeding ability increased. His breeding level reached LV.4. But at such a time, Dak had to leave the manufacturing room and head to Marineford. The Navy's 400-plus Pokémon eggs had hatched. End of Chapter 98. Chapter 98, when Dak arrived at the Marine base, he found the situation to be more chaotic than he had anticipated. Fletchling were pecking at a Marine's head. Eakin's hatchlings were slithering into a Marine's pants in search of their kin. Some Marines were getting poisoned and collapsing, foaming at the mouth while trying to cuddle Nidoran hatchlings. Far away, a young Onyx was gnawing at the walls of the marshal's office. A newly born Rhyhorn was rampaging across the plaza. A Phanpy calf gently swung its trunk, sending a trainer who tried to cuddle it flying. An energetic Elekid was swinging its arms rapidly, discharging electricity all around. Dak even saw some familiar faces. For instance, Smoker was trying to prevent his coughing from releasing gas. Hina was proudly showing off her Meowth. T-Bone was attempting to communicate with a Vimpod. The scene was utterly chaotic, and Dak could hardly bear to watch. It's got nothing to do with me. Dak looked around, shaking his head at the beleaguered Marines. He had warned Sengoku and his group early on. Each species of Pokémon has its own temperament, and with so many Pokémon hatchlings born at once, chaos at Marineford was inevitable. However, it seemed, these prospective trainers appeared to be very responsible and patient individuals, enduring their Pokémon's antics without losing their tempers or thinking of giving up. They were all brainstorming ways to better get along with their Pokémon. Zephyr and Kazan had made good choices. Dak, what do we do now? At that moment, Kazan, who had noticed Dak's arrival, came up to him. Kazan was already sweating profusely, looking completely flustered. He would have preferred chasing after Whitebeard instead. Get some tasty food, drinks, toys, and such. Treat them like human babies for now, then adapt based on the unique traits of each Pokémon. Raising Pokémon hatchlings isn't an exact science. It's a necessary path. Anyone who has raised Pokémon hatchlings has had to go through this torturous process. Over time, most Pokémon quickly grow and become more stable, though a few may become increasingly unreliable. This change is most noticeable during Pokémon evolution. Sometimes, evolution can significantly alter a Pokémon's personality. Gulpin evolving into Swalot, Slacketh into Vigoroth. These are classic examples of evolution changing personalities. Then, led by a messenger, Dak entered a secluded room. Inside, he could see all the people he had taught busily at work. Each member of the science team had a computer in front of them, rapidly registering the newly born Pokémon hatchlings into a database. Then the logistics team, using this database and the information previously collected from a Pokédex, prepared some potentially useful items. Lastly, the biology team delivered these items to their respective trainers, instructing them on how to care for their specific Pokémon hatchlings. Overall, things were orderly. However, the knowledge these people possessed wasn't extensive, so their efforts were somewhat rudimentary. When they saw Dak arrive, they all looked relieved. Dak spent the entire day in that room, answering questions and watching as people recorded the information he provided on their computers. Every Pokémon species had its own file. Just as Dak had expected, as soon as they got their hands on the Pokédex, they compiled all the information into a system. As for now, that Pokédex was probably gathering dust in the marshal's office or somewhere else. The only valuable information in the Pokédex was about Pokémon. Besides that, it was just a symbol of VIP status with no other use. Dak wondered if Sengoku would let someone else study the Pokédex. He hoped not. By doing so, the Marines would gain nothing of value apart from some useless items, and they would lose their VIP symbol for nothing. There was no such thing as reissuing that status with Dak. If they wanted to regain VIP status, they'd have to spend another 100 million belly. If not, they could just watch others enjoy the benefits. By evening, Dak decided to leave. He knew that even by night, Marineford wouldn't calm down. Previously, some Marines were proud of how well-behaved and quiet their Pokémon were. Dak glanced at them and thought to himself that those Pokémon weren't quiet. They were just too tired. Nighttime was when they became active. But this was none of Dak's concern. He had already returned to his room to catch up on some sleep. Over the next few days, Dak did nothing else but focus entirely on nurturing Gardevoir and Mismagius. Monet and Gardevoir got along very well, seemingly already cuddling together at night like sisters. Monet and Gardevoir seemed to be able to communicate simply. As for Sugar and Mismagius, progress was slow. Although Sugar was eager to build a good relationship, and Mismagius didn't mind responding, their compatibility just wasn't very good, so progress was slow. But this wasn't a big deal, especially since Sugar was still young and Mismagius had at least a few thousand years of life ahead. As long as they didn't reject each other, they would eventually become trusted partners. However, the relationship between Gardevoir and Mismagius was a bit complicated. Dak now possessed psychic abilities, so he could automatically translate the conversations between Gardevoir and Mismagius. Once, Gardevoir and Mismagius had a brief exchange. Gardevoir, Sister Sure is noble. Mismagius, what are you pretending to be, a saint? Gardevoir, Sob Sob, how can Sister say such things, Mismagius? You make me sick, you're not worth speaking to. Dak, question mark. Dak was initially baffled and began to doubt his psychic abilities. It seemed unlikely that Mismagius would know the term saint. Perhaps she had said something similar, and Dak's brain had automatically translated it. However, in Dak's eyes, both Gardevoir and Mismagius were good kids, from their first impressions to his vague psychic perceptions. Would such children talk like this? Thus, Dak often eavesdropped on their conversations afterward. It's unclear whether Gardevoir sensed Dak's psychic abilities and realized he could overhear their conversations, but they generally refrained from interacting in front of him afterward. Yet, Dak still sensed from their usual interactions that the relationship between the two Pokémon might not be so good. But it wasn't bad either. To say they loved and hated each other might be an overstatement, but it was somewhat like the early dynamics between Zoro and Sanji in the original story. Dak didn't interfere in this relationship. Perhaps letting it develop might lead to a wonderful bond between the two Pokémon. Dak thought nothing unexpected would happen the next few days, and he just needed to quietly wait for the day of the exhibition match. But unexpectedly, something did happen. Inside the Hatchery House branch, your entrance is quite unique. Dak raised an eyebrow at Karasu, who was gradually materializing from ash, floating in bit by bit. It indeed didn't draw much attention. At least the Marines hadn't noticed, but it was incredibly slow. Dak waited about 20 seconds on the spot before the man fully formed his figure. Sorry for the wait. Manager Dak, the bald man with a metal beak, spoke in a gloomy voice. This man was Crow, the army commander of the Revolutionary Army's Northern Army, though his identity hadn't been exposed by the world government yet, and few knew of him in the Great Seas. The beak he wore was actually an amplifier. Crow's voice was very soft, so he usually wore an amplifier because he hated people commenting on his quiet voice. He had been polite, contacting Bon Clay, who was out alone before coming here. Bon Clay relayed the message, leading to today's meeting where Dak waited for him at the branch. Since you know my name, you should also know the rules here, right? Dak didn't beat around the bush. At this time, the forces seeking out the Hatchery House, beside for Pokemon, what else could it be for? Especially a force like the Revolutionary Army. Dak could guess their purpose without even thinking. To leverage Pokemon's power to more smoothly and effectively carry out their operations against the world government. Of course, we don't abandon comrades in arms. You can trust that, Karasu replied confidently. Dak had no doubts about that. Dak knew little about Monkey D. Dragon. From the information he had, he respected what the man aimed to achieve, but questioned his character. When he read in the newspaper about Sabo killing Cobra, he had said, "If Sabo really killed King Cobra, no matter the reason, I will not forgive him." Shouldn't a normal person trust their comrade first? After so many years of fighting against the world government, didn't he know their favorite tactics? After fighting together for so many years, didn't he know whether his top officers could do such a thing? There was no evidence yet, just a mention in the newspaper, and he was already shouting. The saying goes, don't employ doubtful people, don't doubt the people you employ. If he didn't trust him, why promote him to second in command of the organization? To think this is a leader of an organization, commanding countless people's loyalty? Even someone like Doflamingo, a scoundrel pirate, continued to trust Razanani until his true nature was completely exposed. Oda gave this man a grand and mysterious background, but didn't sculpt a matching character for him. Not to mention others, even on the global character popularity poll, Kanjuro ranks higher than this guy, which says something. As for other members of the Revolutionary Army, they were as Karasu described. Even in places like Mary Geos, they didn't abandon their comrades and resolutely began planning to rescue Bartholomew Kuma. Thus, selling Pokemon to the Revolutionary Army was possible. Monkey D. Dragon, however, was not. The most important thing between trainers and Pokemon is trust. End of Chapter 99. Chapter 99, this is 200 million belly. Karsu shook his great cloak, for which a massive amount of banknotes began to fall. Dak had no idea where such a large amount of money could have been hidden. Perhaps Karsu's devil fruit had some capabilities not revealed in the original story. 200 million. 100 million bellies worth of eggs, plus a Pokédex. It seems you came well prepared. Dak nodded his head. It appeared that the Revolutionary Army had figured out the pricing of the Pokemon eggs and the function of the VIP Pokédex, and had brought just the right amount of belly, not more, not less. As for how these people came by this information, it was very likely the Navy, or within the Whitebeard group, had members from the Revolutionary Army. The Whitebeard group, always mired in the New World, had no need to engage in surveillance. Who will take this Pokemon egg? I will. All right. Dak nodded again, saying no more. He had bought an egg for 5,000 mystery coins at the magical marketplace, then retrieved a black Pokemon Pokédex and handed it over together with the egg. The Pokemon egg was black, and it was uncertain what type of Pokemon would hatch from it. Typically, eggs of this color were either ghost or dark type. By the way, Mr. Dak, I heard you were looking for this. Karsu took the Pokemon egg and the Pokédex into his cloak, then extended his gaunt hand. In his pale hand, he held a gourd-shaped fruit, grayish-white in color. A devil fruit. Dak muttered softly. It seemed that the Don Quixote family's recent activities in the underworld were quite noticeable. Even the Kaku army was aware of this news. Yes, the Dordor fruit. It seems the Don Quixote family intends to make a deal with you using this. I wonder if we might also have that possibility. Karsu's gaze was eerily somber. Dak, however, did not sense any malicious intent from the other with his psychic powers. Such a gaze might just be Karsu's natural look, similar to dead fish eyes. Dak furrowed his brow, holding his chin in thought. The Dordor fruit was indeed something Dak desperately wanted, his desire for this particular devil fruit, even surpassing his psychic abilities. Although I'm not sure what the Don Quixote family wants from you, we're not very interested in that. According to our intelligence, the Navy has a magical token that allows direct access to the main store of the breeding house and makes trading processes very convenient. Seeing Dak hesitate, Karsu spoke directly of their purpose. The pocket token for the Revolutionary Army. Doing business at the breeding house's branch in Water 7 was too difficult, with too many eyes watching. Even Karsu had to be cautious, not to mention his other subordinates. This would make it difficult for them to engage in various large-scale transactions with the Mystery Hatchery House in the future, whether it was transporting a large number of Pokemon eggs to Baltigo or moving a lot of belly to Water 7. It was too conspicuous. With a token, these risks would disappear. Oh, this? Here you go. Dak realized what was going on and immediately took out a Jade token to give to the other party. The pocket token was intended for use by these organizational forces, as their transactions would be substantial. The existence of the pocket token was to simplify the trading process. It was not something precious. The system freely distributed them to Dak to give to guests, and Dak always gave them to other guests for free. However, it seemed that the Kaku army had not collected this information. Thank you. Karsu nodded, accepting the Jade token, then handed the Dordor fruit to Dak. It's nothing, it's free. Dak had no intention of being a greedy merchant, knowing that sooner or later the Revolutionary Army would find out. Cheating them now would only make them more cautious in future dealings with the breeding house. But the Dordor fruit was still a must-have. Karsu's hand involuntarily tightened around the Dordor fruit. Too bad, it was too late. Dak had already used telekinesis to move the Dordor fruit to his own hand. Karsu initially felt a loss, but was quickly distracted by the scene before him. Thank you for the generous gift from the Revolutionary Army. Dak raised his hand, holding the Dordor fruit, but he didn't rush to eat it. He wasn't sure if it was really a Dordor fruit. After returning, he would have Robin check it, as O'Hara, being the former scholarly Holy Land, surely had a devil fruit encyclopedia, and Robin might recognize what fruit it was. Karsu watched as the Dordor fruit left his sight, then gave a reminder, you can't eat two devil fruits at the same time, it causes your body to explode. Despite Karsu's grim appearance and somber speech, he was a character of integrity. He was very steady, good at controlling his negative emotions, despised those who bullied the weak, and liked to participate in various volunteer activities to help others. Karsu thought Dak's psychic powers were a kind of devil fruit ability. All right, I understand. Dak nodded, with no intention of explaining. Do you have anything else to say? A question mark appeared above Dak's head. Wasn't it you who came to me? Shouldn't I be the one to say that? Dak frowned for a moment, then sensed the other's emotions with his psychic powers. He understood. Karsu felt that losing the Dordor fruit was a bad deal and wanted to get something more in return, which was quite normal. A Paramecia-type devil fruit worth several billion belly just for a free token. Who could stand that? Have you got this? Dak thought for a moment, then took out several tickets. Those were tickets to a Pokemon performance match. He figured the Kaku army probably wouldn't be able to openly queue up at the store to buy tickets one by one. No, Karsu glanced at them and recognized what they were. We might not have the time. If you don't come, you'll definitely regret it. Dak seemed to have anticipated what Karsu was thinking, so he spoke up in advance. On account of the Dordor fruit, I'll tell you something else that others don't yet know. This so-called Pokemon Island is actually a world controlled by our mystery Hatchery House. Question mark doesn't disappear, it just shifts. Karsu frowned at Dak, his mind racing with countless thoughts in an instant. The power of Pokemon is boundless, even capable of creating worlds. This Pokemon Island was created by one of the Pokemon from our breeding house. At the performance match, several of our strongest Pokemon will also make a brief appearance to show you the strength and potential of Pokemon. The Navy and the Whitebeard pirates will also be there, as well as Mihawk, Doflamingo, and Morgans. I will also announce some news and future development plans for Pokemon Island. If you don't attend, you're not just missing a Pokemon performance match, but falling a whole era behind. Dak felt this information was enough to exchange for the door-to-door fruit. Because this information was priceless, as Dak said, missing this match meant the Revolutionary Army would always be a step behind other forces. Other forces would get the first-hand news from Dak, make the first preparations, and reap the first benefits, while the Revolutionary Army would have to rely on their own strength to gather what other forces had done and then belatedly realize there was another way. It's like the difference between a closed beta and an open beta. Understand, Karsu, not fully digesting the information yet, but recognizing its importance, seriously accepted the tickets from Dak's hand. Thank you. At that time, you can directly enter Pokemon Island through the pocket token from the main store. Water 7 is too conspicuous for you. Thanks for understanding. So, farewell, and welcome back anytime. Dak nodded, then waved his hand at Karsu. Karsu, without any delay, nodded, transformed into a cloud of ash, and slowly flew out of the branch store towards the distance. Dak watched as Karsu completely disappeared and didn't hesitate for a moment to return to the main breeding house. Robin, quick, help me check. What kind of devil fruit is this? Dak ran to Robin, excitedly handing her the devil fruit. Robin took it and tilted her head in recollection. A Paramecia type, the door-to-door fruit, I remember. Where did it come from? From the Revolutionary Army. Great. I've been looking for this fruit. Dak got a definite answer from Robin, and his excitement quickly turned into exhilaration. Dak, are you going to eat this devil fruit? Robin widened her eyes, seemingly surprised. She thought Dak wouldn't eat any devil fruit, as devil fruit users became weak and powerless when touched by a certain factor in seawater, unable to use their fruit powers. This was a significant drawback. Yes, Dak nodded. Robin's puzzlement was sensed by his psychic powers, and he guessed what she was thinking. The power of Pokemon is tremendously vast. Directly resolving the drawbacks of a devil fruit and changing its nature might not be possible, but circumventing these drawbacks through other means was quite simple. However, Dak didn't immediately explain to Robin, but first bit into a piece of the door-to-door fruit. The moment the flesh entered his mouth, a strong sourness hit him, along with a strange taste that seeped out through his nostrils. Dak didn't dare to savor it, swallowing the fruit flesh like a wild boar. End of Chapter 100. Chapter 100, Door-to-door Fruit LV.1. Upon seeing the new ability added to his personal panel, Dak's eyes lit up. Why did you choose to eat the door-to-door fruit? Wouldn't a Logia-type fruit be better? Robin was puzzled by Dak's choice. The door-to-door fruit allows me to return to the store at any moment. Previously, I needed to find a door to come back, but now it's different. I see. Robin realized the convenience of it. For those with a pocket token, possessing the door-to-door fruit essentially meant they could enter the breeding house's main store from anywhere at any time, provided it wasn't during the closing hours. During these hours, only employees of the breeding house could enter. Actually, not just the door-to-door fruit. Many other devil fruits could do similar things. For example, your flower fruit, Robin, could create a door with your ability, and then you could return to the breeding house. That gave Robin this idea. This would significantly enhance Robin's survival ability, allowing her to quickly return if she encountered danger. However, Dak's door-to-door fruit was slightly faster. If facing an enemy quick enough, Robin might not have the time to use her ability. Dak, on the other hand, could simply push through the air to open an already existing door and step right back into the store. Right, I hadn't thought of that before. Let's call it Flower Door. But Bond's copy fruit seems unable to do this. Robin nodded and then realized that Bond's copy fruit couldn't perform similar feats. However, that wasn't a major issue as Bond's fruit still granted him high survivability, such as turning into a bird to fly away or becoming an inconspicuous insect. I plan to find some devil fruits that could do similar things in the future and prioritize giving them to our core store staff. Good idea. I'll keep an eye on the underworld for more information about devil fruits, Robin said, her expression growing serious as she recognized the potential to enhance their allies' survival. However, she then remembered the drawback of devil fruits. But users become very weak when they touch seawater. We have Pokémon. Dak shook his head, pulling out a Pokémon Pokédex and flipping through it as he explained, even without devil fruits, we hardly ever touch seawater, let alone with devil fruits. But if we accidentally fall into water, we can have Pokémon help us. Most Pokémon can go into the water, and many can use various skills to rescue us even if they don't enter the water, such as telekinesis or Vine Whip, Dak said, pointing to certain Pokémon in the Pokédex. For example, Whitebeard and Vaporeon. These two Pokémon. Robin looked at these two Pokémon, turning the idea over in her mind. Whitebeard can hold us in its huge mouth, so we wouldn't touch the water. Vaporeon can create bubbles that separate the water around us, letting us move freely through the water. Dak merely gave a couple of examples. Overcoming the weakness of devil fruits wasn't a real challenge. Dak hadn't even mentioned using legendary Pokemon's powers yet. If Kyogre altered the composition of seawater to eliminate the factors affecting users, then users wouldn't have that weakness anymore. However, that would benefit all users in the world, many of whom were pirates or other types of villains, and Dak had no interest in doing that. Seawater wasn't a big issue for him. Moreover, with the blessing of the Azure Prince, Dak wouldn't need to fear seawater anymore, but would be free in it like a member of the Fishman race. This blessing didn't require trading from Anafi. It could be bought as a buff in the store, categorized with psychic powers and aura. Dak's examples made Robin consider many other uses for Pokemon. She began to flip through the Pokemon Pokédex again, contemplating each Pokemon's potential roles beyond combat. Dak, seeing Robin so focused, didn't disturb her and left the breeding house. He wanted to test the Door fruit's ability. This time, Dak didn't specify a target location, but chose a random one. It had been a long time since he had used a store door to set coordinates outside. Stepping through the door, the environment outside was pitch dark. I remember it being daytime. Is this a special island in the new world? Dak furrowed his brow, then thought of the eternal night and eternal day environments like on Raijin Island and Eni's lobby in the anime. However, Dak surveyed the surroundings, finding them eerie and foggy, with the sound of waves in the distance. Darkrai, see what's up with this island. Dak decided to send his shadow, Darkrai, to scout the area. Although he had only come to test the Door fruit's capabilities, the nature of the island had caught his interest. Darkrai responded from within the shadow, then silently transformed into a black shadow on the ground and drifted off in one direction. Dak couldn't detect Darkrai's presence using observation hockey. He could only sense Darkrai's emotional state through his psychic powers. The dark environment significantly enhanced Darkrai's stealth abilities. Dak didn't stay idle, but walked around. Under the cover of night, Dak's eyes emitted a faint dark red glow, barely visible, but definitely there. This was a clear sign of his psychic powers in use. The essence of psychic power is constructed from mental energy, which varies from creature to creature, hence the different color characteristics of each creature's psychic abilities. For instance, the psychic powers of Mutwo are mostly blue, and Alakazam's are mostly yellow, with each ability sometimes having its own color, like Dream Eater, which is always pink. Not just Pokemon, but humans too exhibit this in games and other worlds, like Tatsumaki, known for her green psychic powers. As for Dak's dark red, it's quite rare and matches the color of his Conqueror's hockey. And Dak was constantly using his psychic powers to detect if there were any creatures in the vicinity. Suddenly, Dak looked to the side with a frown. Based on the psychic waves he had sent out, he sensed emotions, indicating there was a creature there. It was behind a wall. Seeming to realize it had been detected, the creature hiding behind the wall didn't continue to hide. Then, Dak saw 3 dog heads peek over the wall. To be precise, 2 wolf heads and 1 yellow fox head. Honestly, in this dark and gloomy environment, the sudden appearance of these 3 large heads over a wall truly startled Dak. But he quickly realized what they were, because these 3 dog heads were too abstract. Could it be a Cerberus? Dak murmured to himself. Seeing this 3-headed dog, he knew where he was. It was the territory of one of the 7 warlords of the sea, the Shadow Master Gecko Moria. And this 3-headed dog was one of Moria's zombies, number 82, seemingly intimidating, but actually just a patrol dog, rather weak. Woof! The Cerberus had just begun to growl to intimidate Dak when he used telekinesis to lift it into the air, immobilizing it. At this moment, the dark red glow in Dak's eyes brightened. It consumes more energy than I thought, probably related to the target's weight. Dak was testing his psychic abilities. Since obtaining his psychic powers, this was the first time Dak had used them in reality, and the results were quite satisfactory. He had almost forgotten about Gecko Moria. Though Moria is pretty lame now, he was once a notable figure at sea, at least among the supernovas of those years. Moria once fought Kaido head-on in Wano, and hadn't lost when all his subordinates were killed. Suddenly breaking down, he started creating a zombie army. And it's been downhill from there, with his catchphrase becoming, "Just let me become the Pirate King." According to the databook and manga, Moria was once capable of holding his own against Kaido, regardless of his portrayal in the anime, suggesting his strength wasn't weak. Many people are unsure about Moria's record, thinking Kaido back then was lame. So even if Moria could fight him, Moria was still lame. But would a lame Kaido have been part of the Rocks Pirates, or turned Wano into what it was? Moria fought Kaido when Kaido first planned to kill Odin. This suggests that Moria had potential. His and Crocodile's records were like those of shonen protagonists, just knocked down by setbacks. But no matter how Moria changed, one thing remained constant: his regard for his comrades and his appreciation for his subordinates. This was evident from the respect and loyalty Moria's subordinates had for him. Doflamingo teamed up with the pacifistas to kill Moria at Marineford, but Absalom risked his life to save him, and Moria was furious enough to want to fight Blackbeard, now a 4 emperor, over Absalom's death. Then there's Perona, staying with Mihawk, who immediately wanted to find Moria upon learning he was alive. She was extremely worried when she read in the newspaper that Moria might be dead. At least from this perspective, Moria and his few subordinates all had the qualifications to become trainers, just with the same treatment as Doflamingo's side. Dak wouldn't actively sell Pokémon to such villains roaming the seas unless the Pokémon chose them in the future. In a Chapter 101, Chapter 101, Dak casually toyed with the 3-headed dog before setting it back on the ground. For now, the Cerberus, newly back on solid ground, still seemed a bit dazed, its 3 heads visibly shaken, hesitating to come anywhere near Dak. "Darkrai, how's it going?" At this moment, Dak looked up at the sky, where Darkrai had been waiting. "Dak! Oh, take me there." Dak raised an eyebrow, surprised. Darkrai indicated that he had just seen a very tall person, who must be Gecko Moria. Darkrai grabbed Dak's hand, pulling him through the pitch-black night sky. Dak's current level of psychic powers wasn't high, and using telekinesis was quite draining. Otherwise, he could have flown on his own. As they moved, Dak gradually saw a massive black castle emerging into his field of vision. In front of the huge castle, a dense crowd was gathering. No, a crowd of the dead. These were zombies with their own consciousness, created by Gecko Moria. There were about 300 or so, still a long way from the 900 expected 9 years later. The portly Gecko Moria stood in front of these zombies, instructing them on something. "Let's go down." Dak had no intention of waiting, so he and Darkrai floated down directly in front of Moria. "Are you the head of the Mystery Hatchery House?" To Dak's surprise, Moria recognized him. However, Moria seemed somewhat uncertain, his tone filled with a bit of doubt. That made Dak curious. In this cloud-covered place where news birds couldn't reach, how did Moria manage to stay informed about the outside world? "How did you recognize me?" Dak voiced his confusion. "I regularly go out to collect some shadows, and occasionally I catch up on the news and buy some information." Moria's expression was serious, aware that the man before him was no ordinary character. In fact, he hadn't really recognized Dak, as there was little information about Dak's appearance at sea. Hardly anyone had seen the man who existed more in tales than in sight, mostly knowing the hatchery through its public representative, Bon Clay. But Moria had recognized Darkrai. Darkrai had been active protecting Bon Clay while delivering eggs recently, having been photographed in action, making him recognizable by many at sea. I see. Just curious. What are you planning to do now? It's fine if you don't want to say. I'm just asking casually. Dak thought there might be something he could do involving Moria, so he casually asked. I plan to visit Nia Island in the West Blue, where there's said to be a fine corpse. Moria seemed to view Dak as some formidable force, his eyes full of caution. Despite Dak's casual tone, Moria didn't dare not answer, though it wasn't something that needed to be kept secret. Just for a corpse? Dak furrowed his brow, unable to understand Moria's motivations. A corpse, no matter how powerful, was just that, a corpse. Its capabilities would depend largely on the shadow within it. Nia Island sounded familiar. Dak remembered setting coordinates for this location. You don't understand. That's the body of a great swordsman, second only to the dragon Samaryuma. He was quite a formidable character. Moria didn't seem inclined to elaborate to Dak, who, in his view, couldn't possibly comprehend the power of his undead army. Suit yourself. Dak twitched his face, now understanding whom Moria referred to. Cyrano, a swordsman ranked second in the world centuries ago, definitely skilled, though whether he was truly second best could be debated, as such titles were often self-proclaimed. Apologies for the cutoff. Let's continue the narrative. Was truly second best could be debated, as such titles were often self-proclaimed through embellished tales and not actual merit. Regardless, Cyrano was a formidable swordsman by any standard. Dak didn't plan to linger, and he could tell that Moria wasn't particularly welcoming to him. He pushed his hand through the air in front of him. To Dak's satisfaction, a grayish semi-transparent door swung open. On the other side of the door was the familiar interior of the mystery hatchery house. Success. Dak let out a triumphant laugh as he and Darkrai stepped back into the shop and then closed the door behind them. Meanwhile, Moria was left sweating on the other side. The sudden disappearance of Dak and Darkrai right under his nose, leaving him wondering if they were hiding somewhere on the island, was unsettling. Moria was overthinking it. The Door Fruit's ability is still quite basic, and the level is too low. It needs further development, Dak observed, looking at his hand. Currently, the Door Fruit's ability was elementary, allowing him to create doors anywhere, through air, walls, even on human bodies. With a bit more development, he should be able to perform spatial jumps, appearing a few meters away from where he entered, a capability shown by Blueno during the encounter on the sea train. Given that Blueno managed to develop such a technique, Dak felt confident that mastering spatial jumps would not be difficult. In the future, Dak aimed to try longer-range spatial jumps, which could then perhaps be termed as spatial teleportation. I need to figure out how to open doors through space, Dak mused, pinching his chin. Dak wanted to eliminate the need to physically push doors open, a motion he felt was entirely possible to bypass using his psychic powers. If Blueno ever charged at him, Dak could instantly open a door in mid-air in front of him, sending Blueno into the hatchery or potentially even into the ocean. Of course, this was just a hypothetical scenario. Dak had no reason to fight Blueno. All in all, the Door fruit was a formidable devil fruit, versatile for attack, defense, escape, or other auxiliary uses, akin to a superpower among devil fruits. However, upgrading the Door fruit's ability level wouldn't be straightforward. Dak could rely on his own training or see if a lucky draw could bring something useful. Speaking of which, it's been a while since I did a 10 pull. Let's go for it. 10 pull draw, 100 million belly slash each pull. Get lost, Dak scowled. He had thought about spending more on the 10 pull to try and boost his abilities in armament hockey, observation hockey, and his devil fruit, but now decided against it. Saving money and focusing on developing Pokémon Island was the real plan. Right, Nia Island in the West Blue. I might as well take a trip there. Dak felt a bit idle and decided to visit the place Moria intended to go. There might be some unexpected gains. While descending in front of Moria, Dak had noticed that aside from Absalom, the other two of the mysterious three, Hogback and Perona, were not present. It was highly possible that Moria had not yet recruited these two. Interestingly, both were from the West Blue, and it was conceivable that Moria might encounter and recruit them during this journey. Hogback was already mentally twisted during this period, and Dak had little interest in him. But Perona was different. At this time, Perona was still a 14-year-old naive girl, her worldview and morals not fully formed. With proper guidance, she could turn out to be a good person, much like Sugar. P.S. Perona was originally picked up by Moria at age 11, so this is AU. Moreover, Perona had two bug-level traits within the world of pirates. First, her Ghost fruit, which had already demonstrated powerful abilities in the original story, full of fairy tale magic and comparable to Sugar's Hobby fruit in terms of rule bending. Unfortunately, both young ladies eventually succumbed to the awe of God Usopp, each fainting in fright. Second, Perona's skills as a navigator. Managing to transport Zoro from Thriller Bark to Sabeti Archipelago after the crew's 2-year hiatus spoke volumes about her skills. A level Nami might find challenging to achieve. But all this talk was moot if he didn't actually run into her. As Dak stepped through the shop door, he appeared in a village on Nia Island. Nia Island was a medium-sized island featuring one large town and several small villages, with the town being Cyrano's former home. Most visitors to the West Blue only went to the town, leaving the other parts of the island rather deserted. Dak casually asked a passerby for directions to the town, planning to head that way. If Moria was planning to excavate Cyrano's grave, he would likely be in that town. If Dak was going to encounter Hogback or Perona, it would likely be there as well. With Hogback's reputation, if his hometown were that town, I should have heard of it by now, Dak pondered, frowning. Suddenly, he noticed something out of the corner of his eye floating beside him. Dak turned instinctively. There, floating with a tattered umbrella, was a pink-haired girl staring blankly at him with big, dark eyes. Well, Dak was right. Moria was indeed planning to take Perona back with him this trip. But unfortunately for Moria, Dak decided to try and intercept. Into Chapter 102, little girl, what are you looking at? Dak observed Perona floating nearby. His curiosity piqued. He initially thought Perona was watching him, but that didn't seem to be the case. The pink-haired girl's gaze had been fixed on Dak's shadow the whole time. Could she sense Darkray's presence? Aren't you surprised to see Perona flying? Perona was brought back to reality by Dak's question, shifting her gaze to Dak's face. The Perona before him was quite different from the princess-dressed, somewhat haughty girl he remembered from his impressions. There were several noticeable differences. She wasn't holding a delicate pink parasol, nor was she wearing a gothic dress, but rather a tattered cloth garment, and her once meticulously cared for pink hair seemed rough and unkempt. It seemed her life hadn't been very easy. Why should I be surprised? I can do it too. Dak curved his lips into a smile and levitated himself using his psychic powers. Perona's mouth dropped open in surprise, a gleam of fascination appearing in her dark pupils. Did you eat a weird fruit too? Everyone says Perona has turned into a cursed monster. What nonsense, that's called a devil fruit, and it gives us powers. Dak frowned, feeling that Perona's script was eerily familiar. Wasn't this the same story as Robin's from her childhood, where she was bullied by the unenlightened children in her village for eating the flower fruit? And just like Robin, Perona was also from the West Blue. Speaking of which, how was Perona's negative holo developed? Did it have something to do with her childhood experiences? Perona was a character in the original story who didn't have much screen time, but gained a high level of popularity due to her unique look and personality. However, there is almost no backstory provided about her past in the original narrative. Devil fruit, how we become demons? That name doesn't matter. It's how we use the power that counts. If you use it for good, you might as well call it an angel fruit. Perona looked puzzled. Perona hasn't done anything bad. Then you're a good kid, and what you ate was an angel fruit. Dak watched Perona's innocent demeanor and couldn't help but tease her a bit. In the world of pirates, it was rare to find a 14-year-old girl as naive as Perona. He guessed that she probably hadn't left this place much and hadn't seen much of the world outside. As for the name, Devil Fruit, does it really matter? If Dak wished, he could rename these fruits in the next era. Angel Fruit, Pokémon Fruit, whatever. Whatever the strongest and most dominant organization decided would be accepted by others. Just as the world government labeled a 9-year-old girl as a greatly evil child of the devil, and the ignorant masses believed it. Just as the world government declared the celestial dragons as the supreme nobles of the world, and many treated them reverently. Ultimately, in any world, power dictates who gets to speak the truth. Those who are behind get beaten. Big brother. Perona's mood seemed to lift, and she began to circle Dak, her eyes showing a spark of interest. Your shadow is strange. It just ate Perona's ghost. Perona pointed at Dak's shadow under his feet. Huh? Dak then realized. So, the reason Perona had been staring at his shadow wasn't because she had discovered Darkrai, but because Darkrai had eaten the ghost that came near. Perona's devil fruit was the ghost fruit, which allowed her to release ghosts with special effects. The exact effect of these ghosts depended on how they were developed. Perona's original negative hollow was already bizarre enough. If she could develop something like Chaotic Ghost, Rebellious Ghost, or Lazy Ghost, it could be even more terrifying. Darkrai couldn't help but pop his head out, making a pitiful sound, while spitting out 2 little gray ghosts. It was clear that these 2 ghosts had run into Dak's shadow on their own accord. He hadn't done anything. The 2 little ghosts, after being thrown out, still stubbornly tried to cling to Darkrai. What is this? Big brother, do you also have a ghost? Perona was astonished to see Darkrai. She found Dak's big ghost far more frightening than her own little ones, almost not even in the same league. No, this is Darkrai, a Pokemon, my partner, not a ghost. Dak waved his hand, quickly putting a stop to Perona's wild imagination. He also glanced at the 2 gray ghosts that were still clinging to Darkrai, pondering, why do the little ghosts like Darkrai so much? Was it the evil energy or the unique nightmare aura of Darkrai that they were drawn to? Pokemon. Yes, a very cute creature. Would you like to visit my house? I have a little guy called EV there. Very cute and could do backflips. Can I? Perona seemed shy as she tugged at her faded clothes. If you'd like to come, you're welcome. Dak grinned and reached out his hand to Perona. Okay. Perona nodded and placed her slender hand in Dak's, like a princess accepting a knight's pledge. Dak wasted no time, opening a door in midair and pulling Perona through with him. Just as they entered, Dak was suddenly restrained by a bunch of hands. Dak, kidnapping young girls is a crime. It's not. Why would I be lectured by a wanted criminal? And do I look like someone who would kidnap young girls? Dak found himself immobilized by numerous arms, unable to move as he lay on the ground. He could have used brute force or his psychic powers to free himself, but he didn't want to hurt Robin, and from her emotional cues, he could tell she was joking. But, Dak, didn't you already do it? Robin pointed at Perona, who was now on the ground, her smile barely contained. The pink-haired girl seemed puzzled by her sudden inability to fly. It's not like that. Perona wanted to come with me, right? Dak would never admit to such an accusation, especially not with Perona being only 14. Yes, Perona wanted to come and see the Pokemon. Thankfully, Perona wasn't the type to joke around and didn't make things difficult for Dak at this crucial moment. After arriving at the clean and tidy Hatchery House, Perona seemed a bit restrained, her bare feet hesitating on the grass, and her hands lowered the torn umbrella to try to cover her unsightly clothes. Are you a new friend of the Hatchery House? Sugar, having heard a stranger's voice, came running out of the house and lit up upon seeing Perona, who was about her size. Although life at the Hatchery House was good, with adoring older siblings, she longed for a playmate her age. The Hatchery House. Perona tilted her head, unfamiliar with the place. This is the Hatchery House, where we raise Pokemon. What do you think, Perona? Would you like to stay here? Robin had withdrawn her flower fruit powers, and Dak stood up, looking at Perona beside him. Stay here. Perona seemed confused about what Dak meant. That means this could be your home now, if you'd like to stay. Dak clarified his offer. Everyone here came from different places to become friends. Sugar seemed eager to keep this new sister, bouncing around and tossing aside the umbrella Perona was holding, then tightly grabbing her hand. Ew, Perona, encountering such forwardness for the first time, looked perplexed at her umbrella lying on the grass and the girl holding her hand. This was a first for her. In her memory, boys who interacted with her always dirted her clothes and pulled her pigtails, which she hated. Since she had eaten the strange fruit, those boys, seeing her able to float, had stopped bothering her. Come on, let's show you an Eevee doing a backflip. Seeing Perona's troubled look, Dak led the two girls towards Pokémon Island. When Perona set foot on Pokémon Island and saw the vast grassland and the small animals running towards her, her eyes lit up with a brilliance she had never shown before. It's so beautiful. Perona admired the world before her. She loved the openness of the place, where she could feel truly free and unconcerned about others' opinions. Dak was busy convincing his younger brother Eevee to perform a backflip, promising him a chicken leg afterward to take to his sister Eevee as a token of affection. As soon as he heard about the reward, little Eevee perked up, performing 18 consecutive backflips in front of Perona, making himself dizzy and his eyes spin. Purin, Purin, Purin. Perona couldn't help but laugh at the sight of little Eevee's final goofy look. Seeing Perona's happy face, Dak knew this young girl would likely choose to stay at the Hatchery House. As for Perona's future role, Dak hadn't decided yet. Not because she lacked strong skills, but because she had so many that Dak wasn't sure where to place her. The Ghost Fruit's abilities were very whimsical. Who knows, maybe a healing ghost for the Fairy Center or a surveillance ghost for the inspection squad could be developed. No rush, though. Perona had just joined the Hatchery House, so there was time to see which areas interested her. But speaking of which, was Perona's laugh always this quirky? End of Chapter 103. Chapter 103. Perona had decided to stay. She loved the environment of Pokémon Island and planned to live there. But now, Monet and Sugar were taking her shopping for clothes. Monet, who naturally played the role of an older sister, had a knack for dressing young girls, as evidenced by her impeccable styling of Sugar. Dak had specifically requested Monet to buy Perona some gothic princess dresses and a pink parasol, essentially the style Perona would wear 2 years later, because it looked great. As for Dak's task today, he would lead the future captains and team leaders of the inspection squad in practicing their duties. There were 4 main participants: Bellamy, who had taken a day off, Galdino, Makita, and Zanbai. The 4 were already assembled on Pokémon Island. After about 10 days of training, some changes could be seen in Bellamy. His muscles were noticeably firmer and more defined, though he was tanned, clearly having worked hard. It must be tough, huh? Dak glanced at Bellamy, whose face had grown more determined. It's fine, boss. Don't worry, I'm up for it. Bellamy scratched his head sheepishly. He wasn't about to give up just because things got tough. As for Galdino and Makita, they hadn't shown significant progress, mainly because there hadn't been opportunities to put their abilities to practical use, and they didn't know how to train themselves. They still relied solely on their devil fruit powers in combat. Zanbai had been diligent, but his age and talent held him back, resulting in slow growth. He was now about as strong as the Sword Saint Johnny and the Blade God Yasaku. Today, we'll observe how the trainers who have already hatched their Pokemon interact with them, and how they're getting along. If a Pokemon is mistreated, we'll step in and enforce our responsibilities. Dak explained the day's objectives. The 4 nodded in agreement, intrigued to see how people with Pokemon live their daily lives. All right, let's first check on Bon Clay and Smoochum. I haven't seen much of their daily lives. Dak decided to start with internal inspections. While normal inspectors couldn't check on internal staff, Dak certainly could. With that, Dak led the group toward the spatial gate on Pokémon Island, which connected to the mirror in the branch warehouse, where guests would appear after entering. The team followed this familiar path through the warehouse and into the store. Inspections should be discreet. We must avoid alerting trainers or Pokémon so we can observe them as naturally as possible. Dak turned and whispered to the others while crouching. In the underworld, I have the title king of peeping. Learn well my skills. At that moment, He resembled a nosy teacher spying on students from the window, but that was part of an inspector's job. If their presence was known, people might start pretending, like acting like they're paying attention in class or pretending they're not asleep. So, they wouldn't see the true picture. With Bellamy, Galdino, Mikita, and Zanbai in tow, Dak headed toward the older man's residence, where the Oddish lived. The sun was setting as the group arrived in the residential area. Following Dak's lead, they stopped in front of a modest house with a small, well-tended garden. The gate creaked open, and the five peered inside. Dak approached the door and knocked politely. It opened to reveal a kindly old man with a slight stoop and twinkling eyes. He recognized Dak instantly. "Ah, the kind sir from the Hatchery House. What brings you here today?" "Hello, sir," Dak greeted warmly. "We're conducting a check on our customers to see how they are doing with their Pokémon. May we come in?" The old man nodded eagerly. "Of course. Please come inside." They followed him through a narrow hallway into a quaint living room. Sunlight spilled through the windows, illuminating a small Oddish that sat in the middle of the room, absorbed in munching on a potted plant. "That's my little buddy," the old man said with pride. "We spend most of our days together in the garden." The team observed as the Oddish scurried around the living room, occasionally nuzzling up to the old man's leg. Despite being shy, it approached the guests cautiously, sniffing them before retreating to its potted plant. "He's doing well," Dak noted, nodding. "How has he been getting along with you?" "Oh, wonderfully," the old man replied. "He helps me in the garden. Even though he's still young and timid, he's slowly coming out of his shell." The inspection team shared smiles, finding the sight endearing. "Well, it's great to see that you're taking good care of him," Dak affirmed. "If you ever need more supplies, don't hesitate to reach out to us." "Thank you, sir. We appreciate your kindness." Dak and the group bid farewell, leaving the house and heading back into the evening streets. "See, that's an example of a well-cared-for Pokémon," Dak explained as they walked. "A good trainer understands their Pokémon's personality and knows how to nurture it. Our job as inspectors is to identify situations where this isn't the case and make sure that every Pokémon is treated fairly." The group nodded thoughtfully as they followed Dak down the cobblestone street, their minds set on their next inspection destination. "Now, let's visit a family with a Pikachu. They live not too far from here," Dak said, leading the way. End of Chapter 104. Chapter 104. In no time at all, the King of Peeping led his four companions to a grassy thicket. This was an unnamed village in a corner of the East Blue, with only about 50 residents. The five huddled low, each covering their heads with grass and wielding sticks, peering through the leaves. Ahead lay a field where the old man was planting a root-like vegetable with a hoe. Beside him was Oddish. Although too small to offer much assistance, it vigilantly patrolled the field, keeping an eye out for rodents or rabbits that might eat the old man's crops. "Oddish, if you're tired, take a break." The old man wiped the sweat from his forehead, smiling in satisfaction at Oddish, who dutifully watched over the field. He remembered how his son had once followed him, catching small animals in the field, and how the two would roast and eat them at night. Rustle. Suddenly, a noise came from the nearby woods. The old man and Oddish turned to see a drooling gray wolf emerge from the underbrush. "Huh." Dak's eyes widened from afar. He hadn't expected to find wolves in such a small village. A month ago, the old man and Oddish would have been in serious trouble, but now that Oddish had been around for a while, it was uncertain if this scrawny wolf would stand a chance. It's fine. Let's see how Oddish handles this." Dak restrained Bellamy, who was ready to act, urging him to watch quietly. The group looked out again, focused on the unfolding scene. "Oddish, hurry back and call for help." The old man raised his hoe, gesturing for Oddish to leave quickly and call the villagers for assistance. It seemed the village's fences had been damaged. Otherwise, the wild animals usually wouldn't venture inside. The old man assumed Oddish was still the timid little sprout who'd cry when attacked by field mice. Oddish wouldn't abandon his grandfather. Gathering his courage, he positioned himself in front of the old man and puffed up his cheeks, trying to intimidate the wolf. But a starving wolf wouldn't be frightened by such a small, seemingly inettable creature. It advanced cautiously, more wary of the old man's hoe than Oddish itself. Oddish, bury yourself in the field. The old man knew Oddish could camouflage itself as wild grass, so he waved his hoe to scare off the wolf. Splat! Seeing the wolf dare to approach, Oddish spat out a blob of purple slime. The slime hit the wolf's face with a sizzling sound, and white smoke began to rise. This was Oddish's acid, a poison-type special attack. Whoa! The wolf howled in pain, but instead of fleeing, the burning sensation ignited its primal fury, and its gaze grew more vicious. This time, it targeted Oddish directly. Oddish's attack had enraged it. Oddish, can you use that again? The old man realized that Oddish was capable of spitting acid and felt a little more confident, but he still held the hoe firmly. Oh! Oddish, unfazed by the wolf's aggression, used another move, growth. Oddish's body grew larger, increasing its attack and special attack power. Splat! Oddish spat out acid again. The wolf dodged to the side, but couldn't avoid it entirely. It took a hit to the ear, which promptly burned away, leaving the wolf with only one ear. Terrified, the wolf fled back into the woods, tail tucked between its legs. Galdino, take care of that wolf. Dak noticed the wolf fleeing in their direction. Wolves are vengeful creatures. If allowed to escape, it might return to attack at night. It was best to eliminate it to prevent future trouble. Although Oddish could defeat the wolf in direct combat, the wolf could easily ambush the old man while Oddish slept, as it often buried itself at night. Understood, boss. Galdino nodded, his fingers turning into candle-like wax. He swiftly immobilized the wolf with wax, turning it into a solid sculpture. Oddish's first acid attack had injured the wolf's nose, preventing it from detecting the humans nearby. Otherwise, it would have steered clear of that direction. Oddish, you're amazing. The old man scooped up Oddish, celebrating. Thanks to Oddish, he had escaped a dire situation. Let's go. To Dak, this wasn't extraordinary, but to Bellamy and the others, it was the first time they'd witnessed the power of Pokémon. Oddish's acid was super effective. While it wasn't terribly potent against the wolf due to its fur, it would have been devastating on human skin. The four now had a deeper desire for their Pokémon. Makita's longing was unique. She didn't care much about having a powerful Pokémon, but dreamed of one that could help her make delicious chocolate. Our next stop, Mihawk. That day, Mihawk was still living in the same Winter Island village as before with Psyduck. Dak and his group cautiously approached Mihawk's house and peered through the window. Mihawk sat on a wooden chair, holding the latest newspaper, with a steaming cup of coffee on a small table beside him. Every so often, he put down the paper to check on Psyduck, who stood blankly in front of the fireplace, holding a pink egg. Mihawk worried that Psyduck might wander into the fire itself. As for Psyduck, he wasn't clutching his head this time and stood obediently by the fireplace, warming the egg. Quack! Psyduck suddenly quacked, his vacant eyes turning to Mihawk. Outside, Dak couldn't understand it. He couldn't sense any emotion from Psyduck using his psychic powers and guessed Psyduck had just quacked randomly. Yet Mihawk seemed to have understood something profound, grabbing a scarf from the table and wrapping it around both Psyduck and the egg. Quack! Psyduck looked away. Outside. Dak was baffled. He was sure his psychic powers hadn't detected any emotion from Psyduck. So had his powers failed? Or could Psyduck consistently maintain Luffy's mindset from his fight with Enel? Dak was puzzled, but Mihawk had proven himself to be a competent trainer. Let's move to our next destination, the Whitebeard Pirates. On the Moby Dick. Since little Eggy had hatched, her cries had become a morning wake-up call for the Whitebeard Pirates. Eggy is her nickname. It had turned into a habit. If Eggy wasn't crying, everyone stayed in bed, knowing it wasn't time to wake up yet. Old man, Eggy's rock is missing again. Grab one from Blenheim. Newgate replied skillfully. He had given this instruction countless times now, and Blenheim had resigned himself to it. Take it. Who can stop that little rascal? Sigh, where do all those rocks go? Disappearing into thin air. Marco rubbed his temples, holding the wailing Eggy, whose tears always seemed to outweigh her body. I heard Doflamingo has a subordinate who ate the ishi fruit. Maybe. One crew member hesitated, suggesting an idea. Forget it. It's not worth it. Jozu shook his head. Even though the Whitebeard pirates weren't afraid of the Don Quixote family and weren't known for being reasonable, it was too much to trouble them over such a trivial matter. Not far away on an icebreaker. That's it, Vulpix. Use Ice Shard again. Compared to Eggy's carefree life, Vulpix seemed more like a standard Pokémon. Whitebeard often trained Vulpix to perfect their combo moves. Vulpix spat out an Ice Shard, which Whitebeard shattered with her sword, creating shards that shot forward. Nice work. Whitebeard was pleased with the result and picked up Vulpix, giving her a kiss. Mew. Vulpix wagged her tails in satisfaction, clearly pleased with herself. At Newgate and Whitebeard's locations, Dak and his group were hidden in the door space, observing. Even the king of peeping, Dak found it difficult to remain undetected in person, so he used the door fruit to help. Afterward, Dak took the group to see the Krabby on a nearby island. There wasn't much to see there. Krabby lived a relaxed life, eating and sleeping whenever it pleased. When annoyed by the village kids, it would hide at the lake's bottom. Next stop, Marine Headquarters. End of Chapter 105. Chapter 105, Marine Headquarters, Marineford. In such a place, Dak led everyone to stay inside the door space, never venturing outside. Later, as everyone conducted inspections, facing these powerful individuals, it was nearly impossible to hide without special abilities, but most didn't need to hide anyway. People like Newgate, Mihawk, and Zephyr didn't mind letting the breeders from a mystery hatchery house observe how they interacted with their Pokémon. They were open to showing whether their Pokémon were healthy or not. As for characters like Teach, Shiki, Kaido, and Charlotte Lin, Dak would never allow Pokémon to follow them from the start. Such characters, who could easily dispose of their subordinates or partners. Even if the Pokémon chose them on their own, Dak would not allow the Pokémon to follow them. In Dak's view, Pokémon could not possibly favor these people. They must have been deceived or misled. Characters like them would only treat the first 2 or 3 followers as partners, and the others were just disposable pawns. As for those who were weaker or of similar strength, they wouldn't even notice these characters. Moreover, if the Pokémon by their side could help in the future, it might also enhance their hidden abilities. The number of trainers of the Navy's side was significant. There were precisely 402. 400 naval Pokémon were still babies. Dak had visited once before and had an idea. These people were mostly the new generation of the Navy, ranging from junior officers to lieutenant commanders, mostly in their teens or 20s. There were also 2 notable pairs, Gion with Buniri and Zephyr with Growlithe. Coincidentally, a test seemed to be taking place in the plaza of Marineford at that time. It appeared that Sengoku planned to let everyone see what level the Pokémon could achieve after a month of training. By then, the top brass of the Navy had all arrived, including Sengoku, Kazuru, Zephyr, Fu, the 3 admirals, and numerous veteran vice admirals. Everyone who could be called back was present. Of course, the primary reason for their early return was not to watch this test, but for the upcoming Mystery Hatchery House performance contest. Sengoku planned to bring all these high-ranking individuals to the contest to witness the true strength and capabilities of the Mystery Hatchery House. He had a previously hidden idea that might be reignited after this contest. Inside the door space, don't pay attention to those guys on stage. They might notice you. Dak specifically instructed, warning everyone not to look at Sengoku and his group. Even if they were noticed, wouldn't pose a problem since Dak didn't open the door, and Sengoku and the others definitely couldn't enter. As for whether this group could guess their presence, there was a very high likelihood they would guess. Because Darkray's existence was no longer a secret, at least among the Naval High Command, they all knew that if Darkray show up, they wouldn't be able to detect his presence. At most, they might feel someone was watching them. In a vast plaza, 400 new trainers stood in a circle with their Pokémon, while the naval high-ups stood on a platform watching the diverse Pokémon below. Some of the more active Pokémon couldn't stay still next to their trainers. For instance, Smoker's coughing, which couldn't control the poisonous gas it emitted, was avoided by other Navy members. Smoker had to hold the little one and use his smoke fruit abilities to contain the purple gas from spreading. Gas! The little one seemed somewhat guilty, feeling responsible for isolating Smoker. Don't worry too much, you're still young. According to the biologists, you'll be able to control this gas in a few days. Smoker, a rather gentle and sensitive man, could sense Coughing's mood. He patted Coughing reassuringly. In his view, Coughing was perfectly suited for him, as his smoke fruit abilities could merge with the gas Coughing released. This synergy could potentially be developed further in the future. Smoker, look at Hina's Glaymo, so dignified. Hina, clearly a lover of appearances, held her Glaymo, showing off everywhere. Glaymo, also narcissistic, held its head high, disdainfully glancing at Coughing. What a bad-tempered cat. Although the Alolan Vulpix was also vain and loved beauty, it was a gentle little fox. Hey, Hina, don't get too cocky. Guion's Buniri looked amazing after evolving. Someone chimed in. Yeah, I even went to the science department.
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.